Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Raised and Trained by the Toads. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 14. Chidori's Sharp Spear. Sasuke's lightning style shot out and impaled the clay butterfly in a display of great accuracy as it descended on them. His Sharingan noticed the explosive chakra contained in the bomb drop, but the concentration was simply too large to be negated by lightning-style jutsu alone, so Sasuke didn't bother thinking at all and acted on instinct. Fire style, solar blade. Fire chakra flowed down his sword before he threw it at the small creature. He didn't bother to aim beyond throwing the sword in the general direction of the clay sculpture, and Sasuke's sword missed by a mile. Ha! You think I didn't know about my weakness to lightning style? C3 is designed to overcome that weakness with raw power, yeah, shouted Deidara. Sasuke and the others weren't listening, since Sasuke had tackled Hinata to the ground, and Shino had done the same with Kiba. Just then, the fire chakra contained in Sasuke's blade exploded outward without him to control it anymore. The orb of flames engulfed the butterfly, detonating it prematurely. The explosion almost reached them, but all teammate felt was a strong shockwave. What, did you just? I'll turn you into art. Sasuke looked up at the mad bomber, and the gathering clouds behind her. Not ready yet, murmured Sasuke. His sword landed several feet away, melted to slag for all intents and purposes. He'd have to get a new one if he lived through this. Deidara looked absolutely furious that her art had failed to eradicate the leaf ninja like it was supposed to. That was supposed to be a masterpiece that would send you to see the rest of your clan, yeah? Depriving my art of its purpose is something I can't forgive. Deidara tossed a large amount of smaller bombs off the edge of her bird, opting to just carpet bomb the area below her. Sasuke decided to set the stage for his own masterpiece, realizing that it was likely the only way they were going to win. Even if he could win without it, the technique he had perfected with the hawks would likely kill another member of Akatsuki. Not even Naruto would be able to shrug off Sasuke's coup de grace. Fire style, engulfing inferno. It was a basic fire style jutsu, despite the threatening name. It was actually meant to be the first fire-style jutsu taught to beginners, which was why the Uchiha clan ignored it entirely and skipped right to the Grand Fireball. It produced a wave of flame barely hot enough to warm dinner, but it made a lot of fire, and it was enough to destabilize Deidara's bombs, making them explode harmlessly in the air. Now, the hawk above Deidara gave a large flap of its wings, launching blades of wind down on Deidara. The Akatsuki member was unharmed, but her clay mount was damaged enough to trigger its self-destruction. Deidara fell out of the smoke, frantically preparing more clay to keep her out of her opponent's reach. She wasn't quick enough though. Wolf Fang over Fang. A large two-headed wolf using the Fang over Fang was much more dangerous than Kiba and Akamaru separately. There was no possible way short of teleportation that Deidara could evade an attack of this size from such close quarters. Not that Deidara intended to dodge. Become art, yeah. C2. A large dragon sprung forth from Deidara's hands in a puff of smoke. It was quickly pulped by the large tornado, but the clay was enough to stop Kiba's attack. The wolf landed, far more gracefully than Deidara, but was evidently stuck in a mangled mess of what had been the dragon. Boom! The clay encasing Kiba exploded violently, and for the first time this fight, Deidara got to see her art do what it is supposed to do. Be beautiful and kill her enemies. She quickly began to prepare more while the sentimental leaf ninja mourned the loss of their mutt. Except for Sasuke, who was sprinting right at her with a handful of lightning. His Chidori cut clean through her chest, blowing her heart to smithereens. Without the chakra to maintain the illusion, the clay clone returned to its regular white color and slumped around Sasuke's hand. It usually would have exploded, but unlike C3, Deidara's regular clay clones didn't have the chakra required to ignore lightning-style jutsu. The real Deidara's head emerged from underground some distance away. She jumped up onto a crane which was hopefully stronger than her hawk had been, and lacked the self-destruction of older models. She flew upwards, set on blowing that hawk summon to smithereens before focusing once more on the leaf ninja below. It wasn't like they could reach her. I'm going to skip the chakra eating. These parasitic insects carry a poison deadly even to me. Once they get under your skin, not even Tsunade could heal you. You'll die. Deidara looked up to see Shino's bugs congregating in a massive sphere. Why, you ask? Because you killed my friend. Shino stood below, his face contorted in one of his rarely seen emotions, rage. Secret technique, Beetle Sphere! The purple orb of insects began to descend on Deidara, who quickly maneuvered out of the way on her clay bird. The beetles were nothing if not persistent, and while Deidara was handily outrunning them now, she knew that if she let up for even a second she would be engulfed. She whirled around to throw some explosive clay at the bugs, but they simply absorbed the losses and continued their relentless pursuit. Deidara hated to resort to such drastic measures, but she really wanted to stick it to these leaf ninja, and there's no kill like overkill. Deidara pulled out a piece of clay, and grimaced before putting it in her mouth and chewing. Ironically, for someone whose entire lifestyle revolved around chewing clay, she hated the taste. She spit it out in an action more akin to throwing up than actually spitting, and the clay rose into the form of one of the most beautiful things in existence. The new bomb was a spitting image of Deidara herself, enlarged several dozen times. Deidara wiped the excess clay from her lower lip in disgust, and shouted out to the leaf ninja below, "This is my ultimate art, yeah. You won't survive this one, even if it is scaled back so it doesn't kill my comrades." The large Deidara bloated as if to burst while the real one retreated to a safe distance. She was glad to see the looks of terror in the faces of the leaf ninja as they watched the piece of art get ever closer to completion. She would have to something about the C4 making her look fat before it burst though. It was just downright unflattering. Shino's bugs stopped attacking to swarm around him defensively, making a tightly packed ball of beetles. Hinata dropped down into a defensive stance of the gentle fist, ready to use her protection of 64 palms at a moment's notice. Sasuke was putting his Sharingan to good use, using the jutsu he had copied from Deidara to hide beneath the ground. Once the C4 had stretched as much as it could, making Deidara rather frustrated at her chubby portrayal, it burst in a cloud of smoke. The lack of explosion was perplexing, especially given the hype Deidara's C4 had received. Deidara, however, looked like a cat with a fish. She alone knew that this was only the first part of C4. Once she made the seal, the microscopic bombs scattered about by her lackluster first bomb would explode, decimating anything in their range on a cellular level. Sasuke's Sharingan noticed the air become heavily saturated in Deidara's chakra, and noticed the Akatsuki member staying well away from the cloud of the stuff. He had no idea what it meant, but it wasn't good. Deidara had likely found a way to make the very air explode or something. His body flickered over to Hinata and then pulled her along to the top of the wall, outside of the range of Deidara's chakra. "Sasuke, what are you ahhhhhh?" Hinata was unceremoniously cut off by Sasuke electrocuting her with a weaker version of the Chidori stream. He had already done it to himself to render the chakra he had inhaled useless, but his body was more accustomed to the electricity of the Chidori. Hinata's wasn't, and she collapsed into unconsciousness, though the explosives inside her were disabled. Sasuke jumped off the wall, intent of rescuing Shino as well. "Oh no you don't, yeah." C4. Deidara formed the seal, and just like that, it was over. Sasuke ran another Chidori through his system to clear out any of the chakra he inhaled on his way to Shino, but Shino had no such tactics, or even any idea what was going on. He could only stare in horror as first his bugs dissolved into dust, followed shortly by his own body. The method of explosion kept him alive for a few seconds of excruciating pain, then death. "Ha! 2 down, and 2 to go, yeah." Deidara paused her condescending laughter when an explosion of downright malevolent chakra exploded from another section of Kakashi's walls. "Well, there's our jinchuriki, yeah? Right, pissed equals power for jinchuriki. Of which you are one," mused Haiden as Sora waved his 4 tails behind him menacingly. "Guess that means I'm not allowed to kill you. Shit. Would have loved to wipe you all out. Naruto should handle his own damn target." Sora's judgment was clouded by his rage at Choji's death, and the short freak that had killed him. Any plan Shikamaru had concocted for their survival went out the window in favor of breaking the man in front of him with overwhelming force. He rushed forward, and Haiden lowered his scythe to accommodate. Sora's attack was anything but subtle, opting to shatter anything and everything that he touched with burning chakra and sheer force. Haiden wore a shit-eating grin as he deflected the wild attacks. Akatsuki member were chosen to fight Jinchuriki, and he loved a good challenge, even if he couldn't kill the challenge when he was done. Sora's tails lashed out, but were knocked away by Haiden's scythe, which he swung around as an impromptu shield. Haiden stepped inside Sora's guard and slammed his weapon's 3 blades into Sora's chest. The demonic chakra, however, stopped the strike from penetrating. Sora's right hand reared back before whipping around and smacked Haiden away like a pebble. Haiden pushed his way out of the wall, a wild grin on his face. The 2 berserkers rushed at each other once again, neither one caring that killing the other seemed impossible. Haiden batted Sora's claws away, and kicked the jinchuriki across the face. Sora rolled with the momentum, using his tails to smack Haiden away from the wall. The Akatsuki member landed several feet from the edge, using his scythe as a means of slowing his flight. He looked up, ready to counter the jinchuriki again, and was confused to see him just sitting there like a dog waiting for a treat. The Haiden noticed the chakra. Small balls of light blue and dark red chakra were slowly coming together into a dark black ball above Sora's mouth. The final product was significantly smaller than a real tailed beast ball, but Haiden could tell it was still dangerous. Once all the smaller bits of chakra were absorbed, the black sphere suddenly got even smaller, and the ground beneath the jinchuriki buckled under the density of the chakra. Sora stretched his neck out and swallowed the marble-sized ball of death, and Haiden could see even from such a distance the miniature-tailed beast ball traveling down his throat. Sora's chakra body bloated to epic proportions as the chakra exploded inside of him. He tried to hold it in as long as possible, but when he did let loose the chakra, Sora made sure it was aimed at Haiden. Dodging wouldn't have worked, since the laser of chakra was simply too large to avoid with anything short of a space-time jutsu. The beam engulfed Haiden completely, and while most human beings would have been completely disintegrated, S-rank ninja were a cut above the rest. When the attack died down, Haiden stood right where he had been before. His Akatsuki cloak was little more than tattered rags around his shoulders, and his skin was burned like he had been tossed into a furnace for several days. The only reason the attack hadn't carried him several miles away into the next mountain was because Haiden had taken the initiative to drive two black spikes straight through his feet, pinning them to the ground. Yes. Fucking yes. This is the best pain imaginable, yelled Haiden as he tore the spikes out of his feet. This is a great tribute to Jashin. The silver-haired man took a few deep breaths and calmed himself down. I just wish you could have experienced it too. I'll try to give you the best approximation I can. Haiden twisted the handle of his scythe, and the lower toe blades fell off of the weapon. Haiden caught them and set them reverently on the ground at his feet, along with his two retractable spears. Without his cloak, Sora, Shikamaru, and Ino were given a clear view of the absurdly long cable that Haiden unwound from his left thigh, placing it alongside his other weapons. Haiden took off, aiming at Sora. His new speed was frightening, and made his previous attack speed seem like he had been moving through molasses. Despite losing two blades, his scythe packed a lot more kick than before as well, likely due to the decreased weight allowing Haiden to swing it faster. Sora could attest to the effectiveness, and before he realized it, Haiden was slamming him around like a dog with a chew toy. Thanks to the nine tails chakra covering him from head to toe, Sora managed to avoid getting cut, but the number and strength of the blows raining down on his hurt all the same. I'm only the slowest member of Akatsuki because I like my opponents to suffer the wrath of Jashin. But with your demonic chakra, I don't have to worry about killing you too soon. It's fucking wonderful. Haiden continued to shout things to this effect while he battered Sora. The jinchuriki tried to strike back, but Haiden was able to easily knock the counter-attacks aside with his deadly scythe. Shikamaru got over his shock and tried to help his friend, and his shadow shot out towards Haiden as quickly as he could make it, which wasn't fast enough. Haiden swung his scythe up to knock Sora upside the face, then let it continue on to dig into the ground behind him. He used the scythe as a pivot point to flip backwards as the shadow went straight through where he had been a second ago. Haiden landed deftly on his feet, and tugged the scythe out of the ground as he ran towards Shikamaru and Ino. Shikamaru retracted his shadow, but Haiden was coming at them faster than the shadow was, and Sora was still recovering from Haiden's barrage of attacks. The only reason Haiden didn't kill Shikamaru then and there was because of Ino. Clan technique, mind transfer. Haiden had already seen her healing Shikamaru earlier, and dismissed her as a simple medic, but Ino was also a Yamanaka, and had deeply studied the mind, and her clan's techniques relating to it. Not expecting it, and caught running right into it to get at them as quickly as possible, Haiden was hit dead between the eyes with the mind-controlling technique. Haiden's body gave a rather uncharacteristic hop, and he clapped his heels together while he did it. I did it! Ino Yamanaka has saved you, you're welcome. If he had been more in control of his mind, Sora might have noticed that it was really Ino, not Haiden, holding a scythe and wearing the tattered remains of an Akatsuki cloak. Unfortunately, Sora was little more of a condensed ball of rage directed solely at Haiden, a person Ino had the misfortune of currently being. Sora ran up behind her, and still unused to the body's controls, Ino was unable to react in time. Haiden's body was pounded into the ground like a nail, and Ino's eyes rolled up into the back of her head. Now alone in his own mind, Haiden was free to curse once more. God damn it, that hurt! Haiden was cut off by Sora, who was far too enraged to stop with just one attack. He pounded Haiden on the head again, using both hands and dropping them with enough force to shatter the ground Haiden was trapped in. Haiden used the opportunity to escape, grabbing his scythe on the way out. Sora roared once more in rage, and Haiden smiled back. Sora ran at him on all fours, and struck out with his tails to close the gap faster. Haiden weaved around the tails as they impacted the ground around him, but wasn't agile enough to dodge Sora's fist. The blow connected squarely with Haiden's stomach, but the immortal simply grabbed hold of the limb and used it to flip Sora in an impressive display of strength. The burns left by the demonic chakra covering Sora like a second skin would have put most ninja out of the fight, but Haiden was just getting interested. So do you experience this pain all over your body like this? I might have misjudged you, said Haiden, honestly jealous of the amount of pain the jinchuriki was likely experiencing. So I'll do you a favor and let you experience the most sublime pain in existence. Let's go together. Haiden's scythe began to glow blue as small blades of chakra formed to make the weapon appeared spiked along the edges. Blood tribute to Jashin, chain slaughter. As if cued by his voice, the spike began to spin quickly, giving the whole scythe a coating of rotating chakra blades. Haiden and Sora rushed each other to the high-pitched whine of Haiden's chakra flow technique. They clashed, and both were too berserk to worry about dodging the other's attack. Haiden gained 3 parallel cuts deep into his chest from Sora's claws, and the Akatsuki member's most penetrating attack only scored a shallow cut through the demon chakra. The Jinchuriki's chakra coat quickly healed and covered the wound, but Haiden already had what he wanted. Sora was too far gone to the beast to notice the change, but Haiden's skin became black as pitch once more save for the skeletal markings on his exposed flesh. The Akatsuki member dodged several swipes from the Jinchuriki's chakra appendages, both tails and unnaturally elongated arms to make it back to the circle of blood he had prepared earlier. Shikamaru noticed the destination and left from attending to Ino to go on the offensive. His shadow acted for him, allowing the lazy Naruto to take part in the battle of monster from a safe distance. Haiden was too focused on the Jinchuriki, and while he managed to make it into his circle, he was almost instantly trapped by Shikamaru's shadow. Fuck it all! I can't move, damn it! Haiden struggled against the technique, actually managing to wiggle a good millimeter or two in either direction. While he was still gritting his teeth to maintain the chakra output needed for the jutsu and the concentration to restrain someone as strong as Haiden, Shikamaru sighed in relief. As long as he could hold the Akatsuki member until the Jonin team could get here, they had won. No one else had to get hurt. Sora didn't care about the plan in his current state though. He only saw the person he was angry at standing still. He ran at the trapped Akatsuki member, and swung at Haiden's face as hard as he could. There was an audible snap, like his neck had broken, but Haiden just straightened his head back like nothing had happened. Connected as they were, Sora's head snapped to the side as well, but the demonic chakra coursing through him healed the normally debilitating wound almost instantly. Fueled by uncomprehending rage, Sora continued to beat Haiden to a pulp, getting weaker with each hit as he damaged himself as well. Haiden stood there laughing in ecstasy with each hit. Shikamaru held the jutsu, knowing that if Haiden got any momentum, he would escape the shadow possession with ease. That didn't make it any easier to watch his friend hurting himself like this. Eventually, the pain became too much for even Sora's demonic stamina to take, and he collapsed to the ground. 2 of his tails disappeared as he slipped in and out of consciousness, and the chakra became transparent, revealing the beaten Jinchuriki inside. Haiden continued to laugh maniacally, despite looking the same, if not worse. Is this all you can take, you little fucker? You'll never earn Jashin's favor like that. Once I can move again, we'll experience the ultimate pain together. Sora's current place on the ground offered a perfect view of the hole in the wall that Kakuzu's thread creature had broken through before into the area that Asuma and the others were fighting in. Sora was unable to muster the strength to move, even his head, and simply stared through the hole. A second later, his chakra exploded in a roar of pure fury. His chakra obscured his whole body, healing any wounds instantly. Haiden and Shikamaru looked on in surprise and horror at the 9 red tails of chakra that casually swished through the air behind him. Naruto, despite his youth, was proving himself to have earned the title S-rank ninja. The youngest Akatsuki member dodged attacks that could actually harm him while ignoring the attacks that couldn't. Ever since Sakura had punched him across the forest like a fresh genin, he had devoted quite a bit of time to discerning what attacks would hurt him at all and which were useless. His new, more efficient method of fighting enabled him to practically dance through the 4 jonin with ease. He was so good at taking all of their attention The leaf ninja barely noticed as Kakuzu's threads flew through the walls separating them from the others. Kurenai attempted to trap him in genjutsu after genjutsu, layering them, using extremely powerful ones, using subtle ones, and every other trick in the book. While alone she wouldn't have lasted a minute, each time Naruto had to dispel a genjutsu, it forced him pause for a split second, which was usually all an experienced jonin needed. Against another experienced ninja who could afford to take a hit though, it wasn't nearly enough. Severe leaf hurricane. Naruto ducked Guy's first kick, and blocked the second sweeping kick. The punch that landed squarely between his eyes sent him skidding back. Asuma ran at him, pressing the advantage that the leaf ninja had gained. He opted for a straight jab, augmented of course by his flying swallow. Naruto met the punch squarely with his own, and the two practically bumped knuckles. Naruto was left with a straight cut about half an inch deep along his knuckles that healed quickly. Asuma was sent flying head over heels, and when he stood up, his right arm hung limply at his side. Naruto broke another genjutsu, sending him off the surface of the sun back to the life and death battle against four of the Hidden Leaf's most powerful jonin. Kakashi's lightning blade was deflected harmlessly, and the copy ninja received an elbow to the face for his trouble. "Kakashi, this isn't working," said Kurenai frantically. She had foregone physical combat, but chakra exhaustion was beginning to take its toll. "We need something bigger." Kakashi nodded in agreement. "I have just the thing. Guy, I'll need you to press the advantage. Don't hold back." The Sharingan user turned to face Naruto grimly. "All the jutsu I've copied, let me show them to you." Multi-shadow clone technique. 30 copies of Kakashi appeared in puffs of smoke, each significantly weaker than the original. It was far less than the fabled 1000, but the number likely included some ridiculously idiotic jutsu and a great deal of hyperbole. Many jutsu were likely slightly changed with a brand new name slapped on. Naruto sensed the first jutsu coming a mile away, and jumped into the air to avoid the clone that tried to drag him into the earth from below. The shadow clones jumped away from their point of origin to surround Naruto. Water style, Water Dragon. Fire style, Grand Fireball. Wind style, Great Devastation. Earth style, Stone Edge. Lightning style, Volt Wave. Wind style, Tornado Buster. Fire style, Hades Drive. Lightning style, Hammer Bolt. Water style, Grand Maelstrom. Earth style, Earthquake Booster. Fire style, Phantom Fire Shot. Water style, Poseidon Wave. Wind style, Tornado Wing. Lightning style, Electro Web. Earth style, Drill Run. Secret Taijutsu technique of the Hidden Leaf. 1000 Years of Death. Water style, Infinite Assault. Wind style, Claw of the Storm. Water style, Hydro Hydra. Fire style, Inferno Claw. Earth style, Avalanche Lance. Lightning style, Hyper Shocker. Wind style, Driver Force. Earth style, Terra Blast. Lightning style, Fusion Bolt. Genjutsu, False Trickery. Water style, Hydro Rush. Fire style, Blazing Beam. Rasengan. Wind style, Zephyr Shredder. Lightning style, Lightning Blade. The barrage of ninjutsu came all at once, engulfing Naruto in a flurry of death that was overkill by anyone's definition. Once they collided with Naruto midair, they more or less merged into a column of flames, lightning, and rock surrounded by steam. All the individual characteristics were lost to the wave of devastation chakras. The massive conflagration was cut clean in half by Kakashi's signature technique, leaving a streak of lightning chakra in a straight line through the Akatsuki member. It was a glancing blow, but Kakashi was impressed he had even hit Naruto when he was so obscured by the various jutsu. "Guy, do it now!" shouted Kakashi. "Right." Guy crossed his arms for a moment, and then he lowered them suddenly as his chakra exploded. Seventh gate, open! Guy's internal body temperature shot up as well, causing the green beast to sweat profusely from every inch of his body. In testament to how saturated his body was with chakra, his sweat practically glowed blue with excess chakra as it exited his body, and the sheer heat from his body caused it to evaporate immediately. The result was an intimidating blue flame that covered him entirely. Guy punched in Naruto's direction faster than anyone could see, even with the Sharingan, creating a truly massive amount of pressure. Then, even faster than the pressure, Guy placed his hands in front of it in a unique seal to shape the pressure as it passed through, directing it at the wounded Akatsuki member in the air. Evening Tiger. The seal imparted the shape of a tiger onto the pressure wave, hence the name. It slammed into Naruto, sending him flying high into the air before exploding violently. "Did that do it?" asked Asuma warily, holding his useless right arm tenderly. "Did we get him?" Asuma's questions were answered when Naruto's body fell from the sky several meters away, creating a large crater upon impact. They looked on in shock as the blonde sage shakily got to his feet, wiping the blood away from his eye that came down from a wound on his head. His Akatsuki cloak was in tatters at this point, and he was barely any better. His left arm was clearly broken, and it was healing far slower than usual. He turned his scowl onto the two exhausted jonin that had wounded him so. "You will both die. But first I'm going to show you how outclassed you are. I'm still capable of taking you all on." Naruto punctuated his last sentence by grabbing the kunai headed towards his neck. Kurenai had though to catch him off guard while he was still wounded, but it was clear that wouldn't work. "You'll be first then." Naruto flipped her over his shoulder, driving Kurenai into the ground. While she was still gasping in pain, he delivered a kick across her face. Naruto would never admit it, but he was weakened by the combination of ninjutsu and taijutsu that he had just been subjected to, and his kick lacked any killing potential. He raised his hand up, readying a punch that would kill Kurenai even if she was several feet below the ground. "Kurenai!" Asuma shouted with concern, running forward with his right arm listlessly trailing behind him. There was no way Asuma could make it in time to stop Naruto from killing Kurenai, and Kakashi was fighting to stay conscious after his ninjutsu barrage, a desperate ploy that had used a lot of chakra. That left guy, who in his current state, was of no help at all. Opening 7 of the 8 gate had torn almost every muscle in his entire body. Every breeze caused excruciating agony at the moment, and moving would feel 1,000 times worse. Still, he was the only one who could save Kurenai, and he had to do what he had to do to stop Akatsuki. Naruto was hit before he could even sense Guy move, and he was even late hearing the sound of the technique that knocked him away from Kurenai. "Gate of Death, open!" Guy stood, coated once more in the raw power of his chakra, and his muscles had bulged to ridiculous proportions. At the moment, his thigh was thicker than most people's torsos. Naruto had felt the blow through Sage Mode's protection, and it hurt. Guy spoke up again, and Naruto could only watch in awe. "I won't allow you to harm my comrades any longer. If you insist on forsaking your youth, then I'll just take it from you, Guy, if you've opened all 8 gates." Kakashi trailed off as his eternal rival offered a small smile in response. "I know, Kakashi. I've enjoyed our rivalry, but at least I'll go out in the prime of my youth, securing the youth of my pupils," said Guy, without his usual exuberance. "I'm not over the hill yet, you know," mumbled Kakashi as he struggled to his feet, only to collapse back to his knees a second later. "I know, old friend, but leave this one to me." The premier taijutsu expert of the Hidden Leaf turned to face his target, and Naruto almost flinched from the oppressive feeling of Guy's anger. "You'll be finished by the ultimate taijutsu technique, the Midnight Dragon." Naruto frantically began hand seals to end Guy before he could get close, but before he even finished the first one, his hand was stopped by Guy's right hand. The green beast's face contorted in rage as he tightened his grip, breaking Naruto's fingers, even through Sage Mode. Naruto didn't have time to dwell on the pain, since he immediately found Guy's fist buried in his gut. The blow was powerful enough to shatter the ribs of even a sage, and Naruto spit up a fair bit of blood from the blow. His mouth was snapped shut by a rising kick before Naruto even realized that Guy had let go of his hands. Naruto managed to open one eye as he flew up, and saw Guy far above him anyway. The dark, cloud-covered sky grew even darker in comparison to the bright light gathering around Guy's fist. "If I don't, who will?" "Midnight Dragon." Guy streaked downwards, his fists wreathed in flames of both chakra and friction, shaped like the roaring head of a furious dragon. The shockwave of the punch hit first, driving Naruto into the ground with 10 times the force of the afternoon tiger. The flaming punch landed next, breaking the ground around Naruto's landing spot into pieces so small they might have qualified as sand. Guy stumbled back from the impact site for a few steps as his skin returned to its normal shade, and his muscles seemed to deflate. He collapsed to the ground face first, dead. It was testament to his strength that his body was even intact, as the recoil damage from the Midnight Dragon was usually enough to vaporize even the user. Even so, Guy had escaped with all but his right arm intact. The 3 living jonin were simply stunned by the display of power that rivaled tailed beasts, likely dwarfing the weaker ones. Guy was a legendary ninja, who would have tale of his strength spread for centuries. The Leaf Ninja were just beginning to realize that despite losing Guy, They had managed to kill an Akatsuki member when it happened. Just as they were about to leave and go help other teams fight Akatsuki, or more likely quit while they were ahead, a long tongue came flying out of the impact site, heading straight for Kurenai. She was too stunned from earlier to dodge, and Kakashi was still half dead from his massive attack spree to help. Asuma, however, reacted in time, unceremoniously shoving her out to the ground. The fighting tongue slash impaled the third Hokage's son through the chest, piercing his heart and killing him instantly. Kakashi and Kurenai followed the tongue, which retracted back to the source, to Naruto. The young Akatsuki member was lying on his back in a pool of his own blood, facing the Leaf Jonin with a look of pure hate on his face. Kakashi's hand lit up with a Chidori to finish what his eternal rival had started, when a massive explosion of demonic chakra rocked the area. The walls separating them had finally had enough, and they collapsed to reveal Sora, clad in the Nine Tails chakra with 9 red tails behind him. Naruto didn't see it, since his wounds had finally taken their toll and he collapsed into unconsciousness. Deidara looked down from her clay beast to see her partner in more dire straits than she had ever seen him in, and entered a quick dive to get him. Distracted as they were by the tailed beast's escape from the seal, no one but Sasuke noticed her clay pelican swallow Naruto. The Uchiha in question followed her escape from the scene on his hawk, cutting her off. "I won't let you two leave here alive," he threatened, obviously tired, but obviously determined. "What are you going to do, yeah? I've seen you using big jutsu this whole time. You must be running on empty right about now," countered Deidara, reading Sasuke's body language rather well. "I might be almost out of chakra, but I still have enough left for my trump card." Sasuke's hand began to crackle with lightning, and Deidara became acutely aware of the storm clouds they were very close to. "I wanted to show this to Naruto. A jutsu that harnesses the power of nature itself. The Hawks didn't have the secret to Sage Mo, but they did help me perfect this. This technique will guide the lightning trapped in these clouds down on your head faster than you can blink. This jutsu's name is Kirin." The lightning in Sasuke's hand shot up into the sky, and the lightning behind him took the form of a massive dragon, silhouetting the youngest Uchiha against it. "Wait!" shouted Deidara frantically. "You can kill us, but there are still 8 other members of Akatsuki. But if you let your jinchuriki friend keep rampaging down there, he'll kill all your friends from the village, yeah." Sasuke couldn't deny her logic, looking down at his allies frantically trying to fight both the Akatsuki members and the indiscriminate jinchuriki. "Your jutsu might be able to stop a rampaging jinchuriki, yeah? Us or your friends? We're leaving now anyway, and Haiden and Kakuza have no reason to stick around." Sasuke only had a second before he lost hold on his ace in the hole, vanish in the thunder. "Kirin!" Sasuke's hand came down like a judge's gavel declaring a guilty verdict, and the dragon of lightning flew back into the heavens. Then it came crashing down in an instant. In a flash of light, the battlefield had been rearranged into a pile of rubble, but only the target had been actually hit with Sasuke's most powerful jutsu. Lying in the deepest part of the crater lay Sora. The jinchuriki that had been in an inconsolable fury moments before was now devoid of any demonic chakra, which had all retreated into his seal to focus on healing the wounds inflicted by the Kirin. Deidara looked pleased and relieved at the same time, letting out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Sasuke was kneeling on his hawk, entirely out of chakra after his ace had been used. Tears of blood slid down his face, and when he opened his eyes, the Sharingan had changed pattern to 3 overlapping red ovals outlined in black on a black background. Those eyes, just like Itachi. Deidara looked on in awe at the newly awakened Mangekyo Sharingan before regaining some composure. "In 1 month, come to the closest Uchiha hideout alone. Itachi will be waiting there for you." Itachi's challenge was issued not a moment too soon, as Sasuke collapsed onto his hawk in exhaustion, though the hawk had the decency to lower him to the ground before going home. Deidara allowed herself a smirk. She had felt the attacks Naruto had taken to put him in such bad shape, and they wouldn't be in vain. One of her earth clones burst from the ground, grabbed the unconscious jinchuriki and hopped on a clay hawk in a matter of seconds. Deidara had hid the clone with the sculpture before the fight had began, just in case of such an eventuality. Though she never imagined Naruto getting this messed up, she put as much distance between herself and the Leaf Ninja as possible, both to secure the jinchuriki and get her partner some medical attention. The surviving Leaf Ninja below could only mourn their losses. "I'm perfectly aware of why there are 2 corpses over my shoulders, but they're difficult to get out of there." "Why did you bother to drag this corpse along with you?" asked Kakuzu, gesturing to his partner with his elbow. "I promised Jashin I would butcher this fat ass, and I intend to keep that promise." "Trust me, it's a pain in my ass too," retorted Haiden. He hefted Choji's body to ease the pain on his wrist afterwards. He just did not know how Kakuzu made it look so easy. Then again, his bodies weren't as large. At least you aren't mutilating any money. What happened to the jinchuriki you were fighting? Asked Kakuzu. The bounty hunter honestly didn't see what had happened to the nine tails. He was far too busy getting his own targets. He would have liked to get Kakashi too, but he would settle for Asuma Sarutobi and Might Guy. Fuck if I know. 1 second he was going all crazy, and then there was that giant lightning bolt, and poof. No more tailed beast. Summarized Haydn, complete with one-handed gestures to emphasize his point. We have another one. Kakuzu simply grunted as Pain's voice came through their rings, but Haydn wouldn't be content unless he had something to whine about. We fucking know that already, we were their Jashin, damn it. Grumbled the silver-haired immortal. He looked around the clearing they were situated in, and fell to the ground. This place is as good as any. Let's get this sealing over with. For once, Kakuzu was in agreement with his partner, and he leaned his bounties up against a nearby tree. So what required me to get your body? Asked Kakuzu. The fucking jinchuriki had some crazy sharp claws, sliced my head clean off. Replied Haydn nonchalantly. What about you, huh? Have any trouble with your little shits? I lost 2 hearts, but I got some decent replacements. I'll need to pick up a new mask to cover the second one though. We'll need to get you a new cloak as well, said Kakuzu, gesturing to the cloak that Haydn was wearing at the moment, little more than a partial web of black threads. Guess we will, mused Haydn. A nasty grin spread across his face as a way to annoy his partner. Hey Kakuzu, how much do you think those cloaks cost? They're pretty durable, must cost a small fortune apiece. Haydn's grin only grew as he saw Kakuzu's face contort with the idea of wasting money. Maybe I could fight naked to save you some cash, huh? Kakuzu's eyes snapped open immediately, and he turned to face his partner. You will be getting a new cloak at the next possible opportunity. I will pay for it myself if you don't have the cash. Haydn was slightly taken aback at the out-of-character gesture, and then burst out laughing. He had finally found something Kakuzu would part with money for. Damn it! Shouted Shikamaru as he pounded a fist against the tree he was leaning up against. Sasuke looked on silently. He felt for Shikamaru. He had lost teammates too, but at least Sasuke had been allowed to give their bodies a proper burial. Shikamaru didn't even get that privilege. We didn't kill any of them, and on top of it all, they got Sora too. Damn it, that's not necessarily true, said Kakashi soberly. Guy might have died, but he hit Naruto with an attack no one has ever survived. His Sage mode might have kept him alive long enough to attack us again, but he likely didn't survive the wounds. The thought was nice, but Sasuke didn't have that much hope left. He didn't have any hope actually. All he had left was sorrow, which converted into rage, which he converted into power to get revenge. And now a chance to get that revenge had presented itself on a silver platter in front of him, courtesy of a choice he wished he hadn't made. He should have struck down the 2 members of Akatsuki when he had the chance, but he had valued his friends above his vengeance. So that was the price for these eyes that Itachi had spoken of. But we've lost so many friends, and Akatsuki still won, murmured Hinata meekly. Kurenai came up behind the girl, and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sora, Choji, Lee, Niji, Sai, Gai-sensei, Asuma-sensei, and… Tears welled up in Hinata's white eyes when she came to her teammates' names. It was part loss, and part survivor's guilt, coupled with the brutal manner of their deaths, and Hinata couldn't think about it without the emotions coming back as strong as when they were fresh. The list of their dead friends destroyed any semblance of victory the Leaf Ninja might have begun to have. We just have to become stronger then, for them. Keep moving forward and ensure that their sacrifice wasn't in vain, said Sasuke resolutely. His Sharingan unconsciously spun into the Mangekyo Sharingan, though he closed his eyes to prevent the others from seeing. It was his burden. Whatever Akatsuki wants with the tailed beasts, it can't be good for the other 8, or the village that they belong to. Akatsuki threatens them all, so we'll need to work together with the other villages to stop them. Kakashi cut him off, sighing sadly. Normally I would agree with you, but who would we work with? The scars of war refresh with the Hidden Rock, and Hinata can tell you what happened the last time we tried negotiating with the Hidden Cloud Village. It isn't common knowledge, but the 3rd Mizukage once tried to release the 3 tails in the Leaf Village to destroy it, and killed one of the 4th Hokage's students in the process. The only village we could ask for help we already have, and other than Gaara, the Hidden Sand doesn't have the forces needed to fight evenly with Akatsuki without crippling their own village. Kakashi's right, I'm afraid, said Kurenai gravely. The cycles of war has removed any chance of cooperation between the great villages. Then we turn to the minor villages, suggested Sasuke. If there are 9-tailed beasts, then all the villages would have 2 except for one. But both the Hidden Leaf and the Hidden Sand only had 1. Either one village has 3, or a minor village somewhere has a jinchuriki. We need to help protect them. Kakashi's eye widened as he realized what Sasuke was saying. True. The hidden waterfall was given a tailed beast by the first Hokage. Supposedly, he felt they would become strong enough to threaten the peace he had crafted after an assassin from the village tried to kill him. They disowned the assassin to avoid a war, but they still got a tailed beast. We've never been to war with them, so they might be willing to help us. I know it's a long shot, but we can't let Akatsuki just take what they want, said Sasuke angrily. We need to at least fight for the world we have. Still, this isn't for us to decide, said Kakashi. I'll suggest it to Lady Tsunade though when we arrive at home. Let's go. Sasuke smiled to himself sadly. He was glad that his ideas had been passed on. It was very likely he wouldn't be alive in a month, but he would try his hardest to live through this destined battle against the man who had killed his family. Kyoya and Jinji were rather shady individuals. The two actually did operate a legitimate bank on the southeastern edge of the Land of Fire, but their real profit came from the fee they got from managing the fund of an even more unscrupulous individual named Kakuzu. It was only a fraction of a % of his total finances per year, but the tiny amount was enough to make them 2 incredibly rich people by normal standards. Should we have red wine or white wine with dinner tonight? Asked Jinji. His partner in crime thought about it for a moment before replying. Dare I say it, both? Kyoya grinned wildly at his suggestion. He was incredibly proud of their ill-gotten fortune and willing to flaunt it at any given opportunity. Not that Jinji didn't. Shall I send for it, old friend? Why not? Replied Jinji. He leaned over to hit the intercom and send his assistant out for a rather lavish dinner. Just as he was about to hit the button, his assistant burst into the room. I'm sorry, sir, I told her we're closed right now, but she just barged right in and she stammered out. Jinji was a tad annoyed. Then he saw who was behind his assistant. Actually, it's okay. This is an old friend. We'll talk in the back. You know what, take the rest of the day off, he said, staring wide-eyed at the lady standing in his doorway. His assistant was a bit surprised at her good luck, but she wasn't paid to ask questions. Jinji turned to the person he hoped might double their profits. And how can we help you? You are an acquaintance of Mr. Kakuzu, yes? Zip it. I don't care about money, yeah? She deadpanned. You know people in my line of work. Darker people. Plus, you were the only Akatsuki contacts close enough. Slightly deflated at the prospect of a new account closing before it could open, Kyoya and Jinji still weren't stupid enough to bite the hand that fed, clothed, and housed them. What can we do for you, madam? Said Kyoya eloquently, all signs of his true, unprofessional self gone in the blink of an eye. I need to find a guy named Orochimaru. He's the only guy I can trust for this job, and I need to find him quickly. If you can't help, I'll turn you into pieces of art. Shitty art, threatened Deidara. We don't know exactly where he is, started Jinji, only to quickly finish his sentence when Deidara reached under her Akatsuki cloak for some clay. He's always moving around, I swear. But he has a hideout near here. I can mark it on a map if you'd like. Deidara thrust out a map, and Jinji shakily marked the area of Orochimaru's hideouts on the map. This can't be right, that's the middle of the ocean, observed Deidara skeptically. It's an island prison for his experiments. We've never done much business with the man, so we only know the location of the one, I swear, informed Kyoya. Deidara took the map and stormed out of the building, running as fast as she could back to the clay hawk where she had left Naruto. Whatever those leaf ninja did had really done a number on her partner, and his wounds weren't healing nearly as fast as they usually did, and Akatsuki didn't have a full-time medic on hand. Orochimaru was said to perform experiments on the human body, mutating it in strange ways, but he was the closest thing to a medic she knew of. She was desperate to get her partner the help he needed, and this was all she could think of. Why did we ever get involved with those monsters? Asked Jinji, almost sadly. Kyoya simply grinned and held up a wad of bills, none of them small. The reminder brought a smile to Jinji's face, and the corrupt banker sighed. That's why, of course. Thanks for reminding me, Lord Orochimaru. There are 2 incredibly powerful chakras heading this way. It's almost like they know this base's location. Karen was absolutely furious at these invaders. She had been entrusted with the southern hideout for 6 months, and on Orochimaru's first visit, the base gets attacked. Not that it would be a problem, she supposed, what with Lord Orochimaru here and all. Nobody stood a chance against him. Kukuku, let's give our guests a nice welcome, chuckled Orochimaru. Karen shuddered involuntarily at his voice, and was glad he was facing the other direction. Orochimaru was strong, but his demeanor was downright creepy, and his chakra reflected that. It was dark and slick, but the exact feeling was impossible to pin down, which might have actually been the exact feeling. The two walked past the prison cells, full of Orochimaru's future experiments. She had managed to get it through their thick skulls that they wouldn't even breathe in Lord Orochimaru's presence without permission, and while they were still breathing, not a single word was spoken as the snake's Sannin passed towards the gates. When they could see the gates, the hidden doors in question flew off their hinges with a resounding boom. Orochimaru stood unmoving as the massive slabs of solid iron passed within inches of either side of him, but Karen ducked behind him to avoid getting crushed. Trying to save face, the redhead quickly stepped out from behind her master. Orochimaru relaxed, not that anyone could notice, but Karen saw his chakra calm once the dust settled enough to make out the two people that owned those massive chakras. To what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? Asked Orochimaru. Has my acceptance letter finally come? I wonder who died to create that opening. Or are you here to kill me for some reason? Deidara entered the base, hovering a few feet off the ground with a four-winged pelican of strangely large proportions. I don't know what Sasori promised you, but I don't really have time to care right now. You're the closest thing to a medic that Akatsuki has connections to other than Sasori, and he'll be busy for a few days. The pelican's beak opened to regurgitate Naruto. The young sage was unconscious, and his body was caked in blood. He had shown no signs of waking up in the days after the fight, while they put distance between themselves and any pursuit from the hidden leaf. Whatever attack those leaf jonin had used, it had pulled down a number on one of the strongest people Deidara knew. Well, now I'm flattered, tittered the snake Sannin in a manner Deidara thought wasn't befitting a man of his caliber. To each their own though, she supposed. But flattery will get you nowhere. Akatsuki promised me membership and assistance in my goals in return for my help before, and neither of those things has come to pass. I'll let the information on the three tails slide as a gesture of goodwill, but if you don't want me to forcibly remove you from my hideout, you'd better be offering one or the other. Orochimaru's eye narrowed dangerously, and Karen noticed his chakra become tensed once more. Deidara was honestly torn. She couldn't offer him membership in Akatsuki, she didn't have the authority. And while she might be able to help him with his goal of learning everything as Sasori had put it, she really didn't want to. But this was Naruto, her partner for hundreds of missions, and her only real friend. Deidara brought her hands together, and the teeth of her right palm began gnawing at the skin surrounding her left palm. After a second of Orochimaru's inquisitive gaze, she tore out a chunk of flesh from her left hand in one painful motion. The mouth she had removed screeched in a high-pitched whine that made even Orochimaru wince. It had the same mouth as the one in her right hand, with two pure white eyes over it. Its body was a large black ball with several root-like appendages that left long holes all the way up her arm. This is one of 3 surviving parasites that were specifically raised to infuse the user's chakra into any material and allow the user to control them remotely. There aren't any left in this world, and all knowledge of how to produce them is a forbidden technique of the hidden rock that I destroyed years ago. Is this good enough to get my partner healed? Deidara held back gasps of pain as the burning pain in her left arm got even worse. Her arm had retreated into her Akatsuki cloak, where she clenched it tightly to keep the bleeding to a minimum. Kukuku. Orochimaru laughed as he plucked the parasite out of Deidara's hand and placed it in a small tank, which he slid into wherever he had been storing the glass container before. Of course. This will be a great help. Karen, heal our guest, will you? And record the results. I don't recall you ever healing a comatose patient, so it'll be an experiment for all of us. Orochimaru's order snapped Karen out of her shock, and she nodded vigorously. Of course, Lord Orochimaru. Karen walked up to the comatose blonde on the floor as if he might get up and attack her at any moment. Though the conscious blonde was the one who would likely kill Karen if there were any suspicious moves. Her nervousness was likely due to this person's chakra though. She hadn't noticed it before because he had been surrounded by his partner's volatile chakra, but his own was almost identical to ambient chakra in the area, and was absolutely massive, even while he was supposedly comatose. He was however a bit bigger than her, and she struggled to carry him to the infirmary, though that might have been a rather generous term for the scientific laboratory where all the medical equipment was. There was always the heel bite if conventional tactics failed, so Karen wasn't too worried about her new patient not making it. "I'll be back for him in 3 days," said Deidara. "If there's anything different about him because of you, I'll show you why I'm an S-rank ninja of Akatsuki who defeated the Kazekage of the Hidden Sand in single combat." To his credit, Deidara might have offered Orochimaru a suggestion for dinner for all he reacted. "I assure you, my experiment here will be observation only. I won't even use any experimental medical techniques on him, unless I have to." Deidara left the base in a hurry. As much as she wanted to stay by Naruto's side and make sure that Snake Freak kept his hands to himself, she needed to find somewhere to hole up during the sealing. They had managed to get the 9 tails after all, so where's the other blonde fucker? Asked Haydn, with about as much tact as could be expected of him. This was his target in the first place. He was slightly injured in the fight. "He's getting healed as we speak. I assure you though, he's very much alive," said Deidara defensively. The other 8 members seemed to accept the excuse offered, though Deidara knew how much she was understating her partner's injuries. Except for Haydn, who grumbled that Naruto's absence would extend the time that the sealing took. "It cannot be helped." Pain's voice was enough to stop even Haydn's grumbling. "Deidara, could you have captured the 9 tails without Naruto's assistance?" Deidara snapped to attention at his question, and almost stumbled over her words. "Why yeah, he was the only one fighting Jonin-level opponents. It would have been way harder without him," Deidara stammered out. "Kakuzen knows just how much those Jonin were worth too." The bounty hunter spoke up to acknowledge the young sage's help. "True. Just the 2 opponents he killed brought in more than I usually make in a month and a half. My opponents weren't worth anything. I'll owe him a favor later." "Then I see no reason for this absence to be held against him." Pain simply left it at that, leaving no room for argument. Deidara let out a breath she hadn't realized she had been holding as Naruto's future in Akatsuki was secured. Her emotions finally at rest, her mind was able to remember the message she had to pass on. "Oh right. Itachi, your brother's eyes changed during the end of our fight. It wasn't exactly like yours, but it was close enough, so I gave him your message, yeah?" Itachi's blood-red eyes closed as he nodded. "So my foolish little brother is finally ready to challenge me, huh? His eyes can finally see the light." Deidara was honestly confused by Itachi's words, but the guy sounded like a fortune cookie half the time, so she let it slide. "1 month from now, I'll be able to see my little brother again." Despite the words, Itachi sounded less like he was looking forward to a family reunion and more like he was looking forward to finish what he started. Chapter 15. Han was a stoic man, rarely showing any emotion. Not that anyone would notice if he did, as his features were hidden entirely by his blood-red armor. Even his hat was made of the same red steel. He did wear a black kimono top with the sleeves removed, but under that one could see more of the plated metal. Only his eyes were uncovered, and he often tilted his head so his large hat covered them anyway. The small furnace of his back gave a hiss of steam, and Han removed his right hand from inside his kimono. "I don't care who you are. If you come any closer, I'll kill you." Usually people heeded his warnings. Even if they didn't know his secret, he was still a very intimidating individual. "You'll be coming with us, Jinchuriki." Han turned to see 2 individuals standing side by side. Both covered their faces with hats similar to his own, as if their obscured faces would offset the uniqueness of their black cloaks with red clouds. One was much shorter than the other, and the taller one had a large object on his back wrapped in bandages. The shorter individual pushed his hat upwards to reveal eyes as red as Han's armor. "I don't really care what you want with me, and there is no love lost between my village and me. But my offer still stands. Take another step, and you'll die, Sharingan or not Uchiha." The larger individual not only took a step forward, he sprinted at Han, removing the bandaged object and swinging it like a sword. Han brought up his right arm, blocking the strike with his forearm. The tall swordsman swiped the sword across Han's armor, but it did little more than scratch the paint. Han formed a seal with his left hand, and pointed his right hand at the stranger's face. Steam style, steam injector, super hot water vapor shot out of the armor around Han's wrist, burning the swordsman's face severely. Han's hand was protected by his resilient gloves, but his opponent had no such protection. "Man Itachi, this guy is even tougher than the 4 tails." Han's eyes widened marginally at the mention of Rashi's tailed beast. "Oh, was he your friend? You'll be sorry to know he's dead now." "Humph," grunted Han through his armor. "I hated Rashi more than most. He was always on about making peace and cooperating. But he was certainly strong. So what are the names of the people that I'll be killing, since it is now clear I'll have to try?" The swordsman removed his hat, revealing a very not burned face. It was also blue, and had 3 gill-like slits under each eye. I'm Kisame Hashigaki, and this is my partner, Itachi Uchiha. Our group, Akatsuki, is hunting people like you. Itachi sighed at Kisame's forthright behavior, but removed his hat as well. Well, today, the hunter has become the prey. Han's furnace started to bellow steam, covering the area in a hot mist. Hiding in the steam technique. Han's voice reverberated from seemingly everywhere. Kisame grinned, feeling right at home in the low-visibility environment. The shark twirled his sword, and vanished into the mist like a phantom. Kisame stalked stealthily through the rocky field that they had confronted the 5 tails in. It was far from debilitating, but the small burns he kept getting all over his body from the heat of the steam he was hiding in were incredibly annoying. Even if Samahata was constantly healing him, it was still using chakra, and he hadn't gotten much chakra through Han's armor. Han's kick came faster than Kisame had expected, and only years of working in the mist had saved him from a direct hit. He swung Samahata up at the jinchuriki, but a burst of steam from his armor blasted Han out of harm's way and back into the steam. Now that he knew that Han could sense him in this mist, Kisame was on his guard. It paid off when Han, propelled by steam shooting out of his armor, came flying out of nowhere to kick Kisame's head off again. The Akatsuki member quickly brought up Samahata to block, and he felt the hit in his shoulder. A blast of steam from his legs sent Han spinning away, and a similar blast from his elbow sent his fist hurtling towards Kisame. The Akatsuki member flipped up, using Samahata as leverage to avoid the attack. Han went shooting past, and Kisame ran through some hand seals as quickly as he could. Water style, shark bomb. The steam above him congealed form vapor back into water, formed a shark, and fell down on the jinchuriki. Kisame smirked to himself, before Han simply stood up, a little wet for his troubles. Good. My tank was getting a little low on water. As if to prove his point, the furnace on his back gave another hiss of steam. Now I don't have all day, so if you would just die. Han dashed forward with steam jets giving him even more speed. Kisame swung Samahata, and hit Han's fist head-on. The impact numbed Kisame's arm for a moment, and Han didn't seem fazed at all. A burst of steam from his legs, and Han's feet left the ground completely as he spun around, first kicking Samahata out of the way, and then hitting Kisame across the face. The Akatsuki member was sent flying head over heels through the burning steam. He landed on his feet skidding across the ground as Samahata healed the blistering wound on his face with the chakra stored inside the blade. Would you like me to sit out this battle as well? Kisame looked over his shoulder to see the steam around him come together and solidify into Itachi. You seem to have a handle on things. A little backup might be appreciated, retorted Kisame. He figured he might as well give Itachi some idea of what they were up against. He used his steam till he was cut off by Itachi's monotone voice coming from everywhere, as he faded into nothingness once more. I don't need to know what he can do. This will be over before he even knows we've begun. Han turned around at the voice coming from directly behind him, using the steam jets in his armor to help him keep some semblance of speed in the bulky battle armor. He came face to face with the blood-red eyes of the Sharingan, and Han quickly shut his eyes to prevent any genjutsu. His hand shot out and buried itself in Itachi's gut, but instead of being launched across the battlefield like any other opponent, Itachi simply dissolved into a flock of crows as Han opened his eyes to see the results of his attack. The bids flew at Han, turning into shuriken as the jinchuriki tried in vain to break out of the genjutsu he was no doubt stuck in. It was hopeless though, and the illusionary shuriken dug into Han, despite the armor that could repel lightning-style jutsu, along with very real pain. Usually pain was a low-tech solution to getting out of genjutsu, but here it only seemed to cement the illusion as reality. Itachi stood stoically before Han, staring emotionlessly at the jinchuriki. The expression was the last straw for Han, and he exploded in anger. Don't mess with me! 2 tails of demonic chakra sprouted from his back for a second, but they disappeared when the 5 tails chakra dispelled the illusion. Itachi faded along with the shuriken, appearing several feet to the right. Han was extremely careful to keep his eyes closed from the beginning this time, instead relying on his senses through the steamy mist. Only using enough to disrupt my genjutsu. Clever, complimented Itachi. I know one thing about you genjutsu specialists. You can't defend yourself close up to y'all. Han shot forward, and though his aim was slightly affected by his lack of eyesight, his power and speed hadn't suffered at all. Itachi's Sharingan easily predicted the straightforward hook, and the Akatsuki member ducked under the blind swing. Itachi pulled a kunai out of his sleeve, and brought it upward at Han's shoulder. The jinchuriki was certain his armor would protect him, but the kunai dug up between two of the plates of red metal. Han's armor blasted him backwards to get some distance from Itachi, but the elder Uchiha was too fast. Itachi moved quickly to catch up to Han, and delivered a strong jab to Han's unprotected face. Han brought up his arm to cover his weak spot, but Itachi just kicked his legs out from under him. Han fell to the ground hard, dragged down by his armor. Once down on the ground, steam burst from his armor as Han swept around. Itachi jumped away, but Han still got to his feet. Fire style, blaze ball. Han lowered his hat over his face as he was engulfed in flames. It got hot, burning off his pants and shirt to expose the red armor beneath. Han began to sweat beneath his armor, as the flames continued to come as hot as ever. The armored jinchuriki could hardly hear himself think either over the whistling of steam. Finally the flames died down, and Han raised his hat to uncover his eyes. He quickly realized his mistake when he saw Itachi's Sharingan, and he closed his eyes immediately. Open your eyes. There is no genjutsu because there is no need for any genjutsu, said Itachi in a voice that made a dead person sound lively. This battle is over. I beg to differ. Han channeled chakra through the inner working of his armor to activate the correct steam jets to tear the Uchiha apart, but nothing happened. His armor suddenly felt much heavier than it had in years, and he couldn't react in time as Itachi pummeled him in the face again. My armor. I simply got rid of all the steam in your pitiful armor by evaporating the water inside your furnace. It was either that or it overloaded and you exploded, said Itachi. I didn't care which. Don't you dare pity me, yelled Han as his armor fell off. Demonic chakra began to bubble out from under his skin, and his armor fell off, since without steam it would only slow him down. 5 tails sprouted from his back, and he slowly began to get larger and more streamlined. The red chakra paled and became white flesh. Soon Itachi stood facing the 5 tails in all its glory. The dolphin horse roared, and the pressure of its shout tore up the ground around Itachi, who stood as impassive as ever. The beast pointed its horns at the Akatsuki member and charged. Itachi opened his eyes to reveal the 3-pronged spiral of his Mangekyo Sharingan. The blood-red eyes spun violently, and time seemed to stop. Han, safe within his mind, looked in shock as Itachi formed out of a flock of crows in front of him. A blast of air launched the 5 tails behind Han away, dispelling it into bubble of chakra that floated around aimlessly for only a second before being sucked into Itachi's Sharingan. In reality, the full transformation faded into a chakra cloak, then to nothing. Han collapsed in exhaustion as his tailed beast chakra was suppressed by Itachi's eyes. The jinchuriki realized he had no chance of winning now, and ran through some seals as quickly as he could. Steam style, steaming escape. Steam billowed from Han's mouth to act as a smokescreen while he tried to escape. The older Uchiha brother could see Han's chakra with his Sharingan as he burrowed into the ground. Itachi simply pointed at the location where Han was hiding, and Kisame capitalized on the element of surprise. Samahata smashed the ground, shattering Han's hiding spot into 1,000 pieces. Han was quickly hit several times by Samahata in quick succession, draining him of his chakra and a good deal of blood. Samahata swept Han into the air, and caught him near the tip of the blade. Kisame placed the legendary weapon nonchalantly on his shoulder, and walked back to his partner. I'd say we're done here, chuckled Kisame, looking at all the destruction that had decimated the battlefield. Let's go seal this guy. We have another one. Get ready for the sealing. Naruto didn't know what he had expected of the afterlife, but he hadn't expected to have the voice of Akatsuki's leader be the first thing he heard. Then again, Pain was always calling himself God. Perhaps it was more justified than he had thought. He sat up sharply, gasping air like he was dying all over again. Aha! You're awake. That's good. Naruto looked to his left, rather confused by the fact that heaven was either a weird cave or hell came with beds that weren't covered in nails. The redhead next to him pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and continued. Lord Orochimaru was getting worried, not that he'd admit it, that he'd have to give it back if you weren't awake when your partner got back. So he was alive, which was odd since he had been hit with a technique that allowed academy students to fight a Kage on equal footing. Used by a Jonin as skilled as Might Guy, and Naruto doubted there was a ninja alive able to fight him and win. Whatever had happened to keep him alive, he blamed Deidara. Kukuku. I wouldn't say I was worried, but losing such a unique forbidden jutsu would have been annoying. The girl next to Naruto hadn't noticed Orochimaru enter, and she seemed absolutely terrified of him. Naruto, for all his skill with Sage Mode, wasn't able to gather it safely while in a coma, so he hadn't sensed Orochimaru approach either. I must say, I was rather shocked to see someone with that kind of chakra in Akatsuki. Naruto's sea blue eyes widened in horror and his body, sore as it was, tensed up for combat. If Orochimaru had found the 9 tails when he was healing Naruto, it was all over. Without Sage Mode, he had no shot at beating a Sannin, and that wasn't even taking all his injuries into account. Still, Naruto had survived this long, and he wouldn't let himself be sealed without a fight. It was only a bit left, but I could still sense it. I could have sworn Sage Mode was a very closely guarded secret of but a few summons. If you don't mind me asking as payment for saving your life, how did you come to learn Sage Mode? Naruto let out a shallow breath. His secret was safe. I was raised by the leaders of some summons. I learned Sage Mode from them. Naruto saw no harm in telling the snake Sannin, but he was careful not to reveal his connection to the toads. Why do you care? I found a child some time ago who gathered natural chakra constantly. Even when moving, and because of it he was prone to fits of violent rage. Using his blood as a base, and training I received from the snakes, I was able to replicate the ability. Sadly, I've only recently gained a body strong enough to actively use it, and it takes an annoyingly long time to recharge, so I use it sparingly," said Orochimaru. It was a testament to either his strength or his stupidity that he was willing to reveal so much about his abilities. Naruto looked at the Sannin, surprised that the snakes also knew about natural chakra. As his own Sage Mode slowly returned, Naruto noticed the purple markings around Orochimaru's eyes were similar to his own orange markings. They were actually visible marks where the natural chakra was stored for use in Sage Mode, and differed in color based on the incredibly subtle differences in how the natural chakra traveled through the user's body to the destinations. Orochimaru's was incredibly diluted, but it could likely still be used in Sage Mode, albeit a much weaker example. The roof above them rumbled, and a minor quake dislodged some small pebbles from the ceiling. "Well, it appears our friend has returned. Karen, go show her in." The girl, presumably Karen, nodded vigorously and quickly exited the room. Naruto hopped out of bed, Sage Mode active once more. The natural chakra was already speeding his recovery, and he donned his Akatsuki cloak. "Tell Sasori I'll be expecting that call if anyone becomes unavailable." With that, the snake Sannin took his leave. Now alone, Naruto allowed himself to shudder. He respected Orochimaru's strength, but the man just made him uncomfortable. "Naruto, thank God you're alive." Deidara entered the room, pushing past Karen in order to do so. Once she got within reach of her partner, she seemed to rethink her enthusiasm. "'Cause if you were dead, my new partner would probably be crazy lame. No idea what art is, you know? Plus I'd have to kill Orochimaru for letting you die, and that would be a pain, yeah?" Naruto laughed under his breath, glad that Deidara was here. "Thanks for not letting me die." The atmosphere got rather tense, and everyone present felt a tad awkward, so Naruto decided to change the subject. "So did we get the jinchuriki?" "Yeah, I managed to trick Itachi's brother into taking out the 9 tails for us, then I grabbed him when they were busy trying to keep Kakuzu and Haiden from making off with some bodies. Wouldn't have been able to do it if you hadn't have beaten those Jonin so badly," said Deidara. "Ha! They were better than we gave them credit for. I don't know what Kakuzu got from my guy's body, but it was far too little," admitted Naruto. "I guess I need to step it up if I want to keep wearing this cloak." "You know the position is until you die, yeah?" asked Deidara, quirking an eyebrow. "I know," said Naruto. Deidara was slightly taken aback by her partner's defeatist attitude. "Anyway, what do we do now that we've caught our tailed beasts? Do we just take naps all day and retire?" asked Naruto jokingly. "Well, I guess we do whatever we want while we wait for our seniors to catch up. We might have more injuries than anyone but Haiden, but we were first. So in a way, we beat 8 S-rank ninja at the same time. How's that for awesome?" said Deidara. "Let's go seal the what is it? 5 tails? Unless I was out for longer than I thought, Kisame and Itachi were closest to their tailed beast. The sealing should start soon." "Let's go," said Naruto. His senses were still groggy from almost dying, so he only now noticed a slight difference in Deidara's chakra. Namely a strange lack of chakra in Deidara's left hand. As Deidara turned to leave Orochimaru's hideout, Naruto reached out and grabbed her wrist, twisting it up to see the mouth embedded in her palm. All he saw now was a pale scar vaguely shaped like a mouth. "Orochimaru's help isn't free yet," said Deidara, looking away from Naruto's disbelieving gaze. It was one thing to get help for a partner, just professional courtesy, But to sacrifice one's own power to help another was unheard of for an S-rank ninja, even if you were partners. Naruto placed his hand on top of Deidara's scarred left hand, and turned her head to look him in the eye. "Thank you?" said Naruto, no hint of the insincerity and lies that had plagued him since he had joined Akatsuki. He had deceived his partner on 100 different occasions, but in this moment, there was nothing but gratitude. It was and nothing, yeah? Stuttered Deidara as she tore her hand away and headed for the exit, where a large clay bird waited for them. "Anyway, as the recently deceased, I think you should get to decide where we spend our vacation, yeah?" Naruto grinned contentedly for the first time in quite a while. "I think I know a good place to relax." "You can really appreciate the nature." "Absolutely not. The Hidden Leaf has incurred enough losses helping the Hidden Sand, and they are at least allies. The Hidden Waterfall has done nothing to earn help that we would not give anyway," said Danzo. The old cripple was passionate about shooting down Sasuke's plan, and for once Tsunade agreed with him. "I have to agree. After the losses we've suffered fighting Akatsuki on this last mission, I can't see any reason to put ourselves back in their sights. The most I can do is offer the information we have on Akatsuki to the other villages," said the first female Hokage. As much as they wanted to get revenge on Akatsuki, even the remaining members of the teams sent to combat Akatsuki weren't really excited about fighting the group of S-rank ninjas again. Sasuke was the only one intent on destroying them. "Akatsuki is a global threat. You think they'll just sit back and sip tea when they get all 9-tailed beasts? Whatever they have planned is bad for everyone," argued the youngest Uchiha. "Akatsuki is no longer our problem. The villages that still have a tailed beast are their targets. We can only hope that their losses are greater than our own. Losing Might Guy and Asuma Sarutobi will send a message of weakness to the other villages," commented Hamura, one of the Hokage's 2 advisors. "Stretching ourselves too thin would simply be asking for an invasion, and ignoring Akatsuki is asking for destruction. The Hidden Waterfall is the only village that we might be able to convince to let us help them, and they need our help if they want even the most remote chance of defending their jinchuriki," argued Sasuke, his passion for defeating Akatsuki activating his Sharingan. Tsunade cut off any further argument by slamming her hand down on her desk, an action that utterly destroyed the unfortunate furniture and sent papers flying around the room. "We incurred losses this time. Big losses. Losses I am going to have to explain to 3 clan heads and even more distraught parents. If I were to approve any further confrontations with Akatsuki, they would never stand for it. I am the Hokage, and I'm ordering that no forces will be deployed to any other hidden village to assist in the combating of Akatsuki. That's the end of it." Danzo agreed with Tsunade for once, nodding quietly off to the side. Sasuke stormed out of the Hokage's office, heading to the sections of forest that belonged to the Uchiha clan, and therefore to him. Sasuke found the Naka shrine easily enough, having long ago memorized the location. With the Mangekyo Sharingan, he hoped to decipher more of the tablet hidden in the back room of the Uchiha's meeting place, which was in turn hidden beneath one of the tatami mats in the shrine proper. Ignoring the wall of strange masks in the back room, Sasuke turned his newly acquired eyes on the ancient slab of rock. Before, all his Sharingan had been able to discern was the requirements to achieve the next level of Sharingan, something he had rejected in fear of becoming like his brother. Now he saw more, and what he read terrified him. Apparently, the tailed beasts were all fragments of one greater being, the 10 Tails. A demon that had challenged the greatest and first ninja to ever live, the Sage of 6 Paths. Still more of the tablet remained illegible, but Sasuke had seen enough to spook him. If Akatsuki planned to revive this demon, he had to protect the jinchuriki at any cost. But first he had to survive his fight with Itachi. Once he had cleansed his past, he could save the future. "We only have 2 jinchuriki left," said Pain matter-of-factly. "How close are we to the others?" "We still have to get back to the hidden cloud and capture the 8-tailed beast," said Haiden, trying valiantly not to swear directly to their leader. "It will be more difficult this time, since they've likely tightened security after we captured their other jinchuriki," said Kakuzu gruffly. "It'll be a bit of a trip to the hidden waterfall village for the 7 Tails, but we'll get there," said Sasori through his puppet armor. "Yeah, and the journey is half the experience," said Zetsu excitedly. "It's a long way to the village. I'd be pleasantly surprised if it was only half the experience," he added grumpily. "Good. The teams that have gathered their tailed beasts may fill their time how they please, as long as they report for the sealing of the remaining tailed beasts," said Pain. The extended silence as Akatsuki waited for their leader to speak again was finally broken by Itachi. "I have a family matter to deal with in a few weeks," Perhaps you two could assist in ensuring that it remains private? Naruto was surprised to find that Itachi was honestly asking them, not simply ordering them around as he would have when he and Deidara had been the two blondes playing at S rank. I've got no issue with it. What about you, Naruto? Said Deidara, turning to face her partner. I'm feeling nostalgic now, but in a few weeks I'll probably remember why they drive me crazy. I'm in, said the young sage. A simple guard mission with Kisame and Deidara with him would be a perfect warm-up after a long vacation. Han's body fell to the ground as the last of his demonic chakra was drained out of him. Another eye opened on the statue, making a grand total of 7. Then I'll see you at the end of the month, said Itachi, before he and his partner faded into nothingness. Haiden and Kakuzu followed suit, eager not to be the last team to get their tailed beasts. Zetsu both cheered and groaned at the same time, and Sasori just groaned as they exited as well. Deidara and Naruto were quick to not spend any awkward moments with Akatsuki's leader and his partner. So where is this vacation place you have in mind? Asked Deidara, working out a kink in her shoulder as she stood up. I could use some rest and relaxation, yeah? Naruto ran through some seals, then slammed his hand down on the ground. Summoning technique. In a cloud of smoke, a large red toad appeared. It was nowhere as big as what Naruto could summon, but the amphibian was far larger than any normal toad would ever be. Hey Gamakichi, yo bro. Why'd you summon me this time, huh? Got someone you need me to beat up? Is it her? I never thought you'd have trouble with some girl, but alright. The toad stood up awkwardly and adopted a ridiculous boxing stance that Deidara couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at. She casually reached out and pushed the toad, causing him to lose his balance and fall backwards. Ah. She's tough alright. Don't worry though, I got this. Naruto's shoulders slumped a bit at his adopted brother's antics, and decided to speak up to save Gamakichi any further embarrassment. Actually, we need a ride to Mount Myoboku. Feel like giving us a lift? Gamakichi's dropped his joking demeanor immediately, staring Naruto dead in the eye. As they were now the same height, it was easy. You want me to bring her too? Yes. Deidara didn't appreciate being talked about like she wasn't even there, but she was able to sense the tension between the two as they stared at each other, so she refrained from interrupting. You trust her with this? Asked Gamakichi, doing his best to make his voice intimidating. It was working, and Deidara could hardly believe he was the same ridiculous toad from just a moment ago. Yes, replied Naruto, betraying no emotion in his voice. Gamakichi didn't reply, instead vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Deidara waved a hand in front of her face while coughing from the unexpected explosion of smoke. So is that a no? She asked as the smoke cleared away. What was all that about anyway? Seems kind of tense for a vacation, yeah? Naruto sighed and turned to face Deidara. Any summon animal guards their secrets closely, and they expect their summoner to do the same. Bringing outsiders like you isn't something done often. If you don't want to betray my trust, there are 2 rules. Tell no one of what happens on Mount Myoboku, what it's like, or even that it exists. Secondly, think of what Haiden would do, and do the opposite while we're there. Grasping the importance of what Naruto was entrusting her with, Deidara nodded. So no swearing and killing? I can do that. Naruto held out his hand. Hold on if you don't want to be lost in between dimensions or something like that. Deidara grabbed her partner's hand, and the two vanished in a cloud of smoke. I got it, said Sasuke, handing a large folded piece of paper to the old woman in front of him. The old lady was incredibly strange, wearing a pair of fake cat ears, and reached out to grab the page. She unfolded it, nodded in appreciation, folded it back up, and inserted it into a large pink book. Do you have it ready yet? So impatient to kill your own brother? Chided the old woman. I remember when you were both just little kittens. You got along so well back then. Itachi isn't the boy you remember anymore, said Sasuke. After a moment's though he added to his statement. Neither am I. The crazy cat lady sighed, then turned to pick up a large bag. I've sealed all I could fit into the seals. Anything you need to win a war is in this bag. Shuriken to paper bombs, extra swords to ninja wire. Everything you requested. Thank you, said Sasuke as he took the bag. The youngest Uchiha turned to leave, but was stopped by Nikoma's voice. Nikomata was Itachi's idea, you know. A hurdle for you to overcome before you faced him. I don't know any more about him than you do, but I know that even after what he did, for some amount of time, he still cared for you. Sasuke stopped and turned his head to look back over his shoulder. No, he just wanted me to have these eyes before I faced him. I don't know why, but I intend to find out before I finish what he started back then. Sasuke turned away and left then. He had some training to do before the end of the month. Well. The prodigal son returns after all these years, eh? Said Fukasaku, appraising Naruto with a scrutinizing eye. Deidara snickered at her partner's behavior. The mighty S-rank ninja had reverted to a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar the moment the tiny toad in front of him had pulled out a tiny stick the size of a ruler. Making any noise turned out to be a bad idea, since it turned the two toads' attention to her. But look here, Pa, little Naruto brought his girlfriend home. Meeting the parents is an important step in any relationship. Naruto and Deidara began choking on their words in a race to vehemently deny the accusation. She's just my partner in a group I joined. We've worked together for years, there's nothing more there. Oh. Naruto's hand shot up to where Fukasaku has whipped him on the back of the head with the stick. Don't you go interrupting your ma like that. Chastised the tiny green toad. Thought I taught you better manners than that, and you wonder why he never visits? Said Shima. He comes out on a limb here bringing his girl here, and you go embarrassing him. Pa's the less embarrassing one. Mumbled Naruto. He was smacked upside the head, and fell backwards. Don't talk that way about you, ma, said Fukasaku, twirling his stick expertly. She practically raised you. Shima hopped into the small house where they were currently outside. I suppose we'll have to pull out all the stops to impress our little boy's lady friend. I'll go prepare a feast. Naruto sat up at the mention of food, and Fukasaku hopped off to help his wife, sparing one last glance over his shoulder. Deidara helped Naruto to his feet, quickly pulling her hand away once he was on his feet. So you grew up here, yeah? Seems nice. It is. I trained here to become a sage, and despite all our fighting, they really are my family, said Naruto. So why did you leave? It doesn't seem to be like how I left my home. There definitely aren't as many craters, said Deidara. Every member of Akatsuki had either left their village under less than harmonious circumstances or never had one to begin with. To find out Naruto had a relatively normal home to return to, Deidara wondered why he ever left. I left once I had learned all I could hear. I'm currently better than Pa, Ma, or even Jiraiya of the Sannin with Sage Mode, and I have been since before I met you. I wasn't nearly experienced enough to be called a sage at the time, so I left to experience the world. What I did in the meantime didn't really matter to me, so I joined Akatsuki, explained Naruto, getting lost in the past. Don't tell Pa or Ma, but I think I've experienced enough of the world to be called a sage at this point. They'd disagree, but I can't think of much I haven't done at this point. Deidara nodded in agreement. She finally got a chance to really look around, and saw the exotic kind of beauty Mount Myoboku had. She could get used to relaxing here before they had to help keep Itachi's family matter private. It was the dead of night when Sasuke finally left for his match with Itachi. It still seemed surreal, a dream where he could confront Itachi. He didn't trust Akatsuki to let him leave peacefully, but he would be sure to take one of them with him at the least. He hid in the shadows as a patrol group on the wall walked overhead. They were skilled watchmen and trained ninja, but they were looking for people trying to sneak into the village, not sneak out of it. They passed, and Sasuke quickly flipped over the large wall that defended the Hidden Leaf village from attack. He quickly descended the outer side and dashed into the woods. Sasuke was intent on getting close to the Uchiha hideout so he could make as short a trip as possible to the determined battlefield. It was one of several that dotted the Land of Fire, and some surrounding countries, but they hadn't been used regularly in decades. The fortresses were relics of the past, before the hidden village system when clans had fought in a state of constant war. Sasuke was so focused on his speed as he dashed through the tree limbs, that he didn't notice that he was being watched. Then again, he was being watched by an invisible man several hundred meters away by something so low-tech that most ninja didn't bother with it. The watcher stood up and snapped his telescope closed. Where are you off to in such a hurry, I wonder? He mused to himself. They had left a week early, since getting anywhere from Mount Myoboku by any method other than summoning was an incredibly long trip. Leaving had been a bittersweet experience for Deidara. On one hand, once they had gotten over her outsider status, the toads had really appreciated her art, especially the colored variety that she almost never got an opportunity to use. The clay in the area was extremely receptive to her chakra, and she had managed to get a bag of the stuff to take with her. On the other hand, the toads ate like toads, devouring large bugs and insects. Naruto had quickly reverted to a little boy tasting his mother's home cooking, but Deidara hadn't eaten a square meal since they had arrived. All in all though, Mount Myoboku had been a great experience and an excellent chance to relax, but it was time to get back to work. The large bird she was sharing with her partner landed next to one of the two other Akatsuki members to have met their quota. Kisame looked up at the two blondes, grinning like a maniac. Itachi's already gone on ahead. You know what to do, right? Asked Kisame as they drew near. Let Itachi's brother through, kill anyone else. Seems simple enough, yeah? Said Deidara, shrugging as she repeated the straightforward instructions. Speak of the devil, said Naruto as he stood up and faced the woods. Seconds later, Sasuke Uchiha burst from the trees, landing with his Sharingan active and his hand on his sword. So do I need to kill you to get to Itachi? Asked Sasuke, pulling his sword halfway out of its sheath. I was under the impression that this would be a private affair. Or does the word of an S-rank ninja mean nothing? Kisame laughed lightly at the threats. Nothing like that. We're just here to make sure you get through. And to kill anyone you may have brought along, accidentally or otherwise. You, on the other hand, can pass right on through. We'll even give you a head start if you manage to win against Itachi. Sasuke walked slowly in between the three members of Akatsuki, never taking his hand off of his sword. Still, the S-rank ninja were true to their word, and Sasuke broke into a sprint towards the Uchiha hideout once he was past them. Naruto sat down in a meditation pose, gathering natural chakra for what he had just sensed. Deidara, give Kisame a lift to the other side of the hideout, then take up position in either the east or the west. Someone may come from other directions, so we should stop anyone coming from somewhere else, said Naruto. What about you? Asked Kisame as he leapt up to take Naruto's place on Deidara's clay mount. I'll take care of anyone coming up from the south, said the sage. Deidara shrugged, and her bird took off to get into position. After a few minutes, Naruto spoke up again, seemingly to no one. I knew this would happen eventually, but I didn't think it would be today. Show yourself. Responding to his challenge, Sasuke's follower jumped out of the trees, and the impact obscured him in a cloud of dust. As it cleared, the figure within came into view. Naruto opened his eyes to glare at the white-haired man striking a ridiculous pose in front of him. The gallant Jiraiya has arrived. Chapter 16. Well, Jiraiya, to what do I owe the pleasure? Asked Naruto. Out for a stroll? Just making sure that little Sasuke returns in one piece. I take it I have to get through you first? Asked Jiraiya as he lowered his absurd pose. I had hoped to avoid fighting you for a while yet. It appears you can have everything you want though. So let's finish this quarrel between us here and now, said Naruto. Jiraiya ran through several seals after biting his thumb and went to slam his hand on the ground, but stopped when Naruto held up his hand. Wait, the toads are like family to me. It would be unfair to both me and them to make us fight each other. This is an issue to be settled by us, but it would be even more unfair if I were to fight you without sage mode. And isn't this to determine which of us is the better sage? Asked Jiraiya, keeping the chakra for the summoning technique ready just in case. True. This isn't a fight between Akatsuki and the Hidden Leaf, or even between Naruto and Jiraiya. This is a battle between sages and toad summoners. Naruto thought for a moment before continuing. I will wait for you to gather the natural chakra you'll need. How generous of you, responded Jiraiya sarcastically. I've been perfecting sage mode in preparation for this though, so I guess it isn't too much of a disadvantage. Regardless of his distrust, the legendary Sannin sat down and began to meditate, and Naruto did the same. As time passed, the red streaks on Jiraiya's cheeks began to grow until they were massive red triangles covering most of his lower face. On some unspoken signal, both sages decided that he had gathered enough natural chakra and leapt at each other. Their first punches stopped feet away from each other, and both sages were blasted back by the other's natural chakra-enhanced blows. Jiraiya leapt into the air with a small blue sphere in his hand. Naruto was questioning the chances of such a small attack hitting him when it began to grow, reaching a diameter over twice as big as Naruto was tall. Naruto realized that avoiding the attack was now near impossible, and blocking it would likely get him killed, which left him the sole option of blocking the attack. Naruto gathered a large amount of sage chakra in his right fist and struck out. The blue orb of spiraling death buckled under the pressure of the hit, before it burst like a balloon. Only instead of water inside, the massive Rasengan was full of pure sage chakra. The explosion was massive, enveloping both sides and several hundred feet beyond. When the dust cleared, both Naruto and Jiraiya were worse for wear, but Naruto was still alive. Not bad, but I've been training to face you since I was a little kid. I'm prepared for all your tricks, said Naruto. You might be a better ninja, but I'm a better sage. Naruto jumped at Jiraiya in a burst of speed. He jumped to the side, easily estimating the distance of Jiraiya's own Sage Mode enhanced punch. The invisible extension of the Sanin's counter brushed past the sleeve of Naruto's Akatsuki cloak, but it did little to stop him. Jiraiya dodged to the side to avoid Naruto's punch, but didn't put enough distance between the punch and himself. You use Sage Mode as a last resort, but I use it constantly. You've never had to worry about getting hurt in Sage Mode, you just power through it. Naruto grinned as he felt the battle going in his favor. That's where I have the advantage. I'm aware of every shortcoming Sage Mode has and how to avoid it. I also know how to use all its strengths to their fullest potential. Like sensing shadow clones underground. Naruto leapt back as Jiraiya's shadow clone jumped out from under the ground, Rasengan in hand. The attack was faster than Naruto had anticipated, however, and the Rasengan left a small cut all the way up his chest. The wound wasn't much, but it did destroy the fastenings on his Akatsuki cloak. The shadow clone burst in a puff of smoke as Naruto kicked it violently. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya, whipping out a kunai and filling it with sage chakra. The small blade turned to stone, and elongated into a slate-gray sword covered in veins of sage chakra, with only the ring on the hilt to show that it had once been a simple kunai. Jiraiya recognized the stone sage swords of Mount Myoboku, but he had never realized how they were actually made. Naruto ran at Jiraiya, who once more tried to use the extended range of Sage Mode to keep Naruto at bay. This time, however, Naruto simply cut through the invisible aura with the sword like butter, Sage Chakra canceling Sage Chakra. The downward swing did put the younger sage at a disadvantage in terms of positioning, and Jiraiya was easily able to avoid the follow-up swing that attempted to cut off his legs. He landed a fair distance away and ran through some seals. Sage Art, Fire Release Stream. The river of flames that Jiraiya spat out was imbued with Sage Chakra, which meant the defensive powers of Sage Mode were completely useless. Knowing this, Naruto gathered Sage Chakra for a counter. Sage Art, Rising Earth Core. The pillar of stone that burst forth from the ground at Naruto's feet carried him up above the fire, which raged at the base of the column for a short time before dying out. Its purpose fulfilled, the stone receded back into the earth. Naruto twirled the stone sword around to hold it in a reverse grip, and prepared to run Jiraiya down before the Sannin could get off any more jutsu. In the split second before Naruto took off, Jiraiya saw something that made him hesitate. That hesitation didn't last long, but it lasted long enough for Naruto to score a large gash across Jiraiya's chest. Jiraiya looked back at Naruto, and thought about what he had seen. Now that he was actively concentrating on it, Jiraiya wondered how he had missed it before. The spiky blonde hair, the way the cloak billowed behind him, the blade held in his hand. Gambling was Tsunade's thing, but Jiraiya was willing to bet that without Sage Mode active, Naruto would have deep blue eyes as well. The Sannin had always wondered how the toads had found Naruto, and now he had a reasonable guess. Of course, he mused aloud. The night he died, you must have gone back with Gamabunta. Your birth would have been kept secret, so nobody would know you were missing. What are you rambling about? Asked Naruto, tightening his grip on the sword that he had learned to create just for the purpose of countering Jiraiya's Sage Mode. You're Minato's son, aren't you? Well. It appears my foolish little brother was foolish enough to actually think he could beat me. Itachi sat on the chair that was traditionally used by the head of the Uchiha clan during meeting in the days of yore. Everything from his closed eyes to his crossed legs radiated confidence that Sasuke was no threat. Allow me to shatter that illusion for you. Before I kill you for what you did, let me ask one thing. Sasuke's Sharingan was active, looking frantically for the genjutsu he knew would be there. He had already dispelled several subtle ones, from Itachi's location being several feet to the left in reality to with his eyes actually watching Sasuke intently. Why did you leave me alone to seek vengeance? Any Uchiha would be able to achieve these eyes. Why me? Let me tell you why, said Itachi as Sasuke unraveled the genjutsu around him silently. Long ago, these same eyes were awoken by a pair of brothers much like today. Madara Uchiha and his younger brother Izuna were geniuses the likes of which the world may never see again. So it should be no surprise that they achieved the ultimate level of Sharingan, using it to climb to the top of the ninja world. But by using their eyes, Madara found out the price of this power. What price? Asked Sasuke. And what does it have to do with us? The Mangekyo Sharingan gives greater light than any eye known to man, but the candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long. The price for that light is a slow descent into eternal darkness, said Itachi as his black eyes slowly turned into the red of the Sharingan, then into the Mangekyo Sharingan that had haunted Sasuke's dreams for years. As the Mangekyo Sharingan is used more and more, the user's vision slowly degrades, until blindness claims them. What? Sasuke's eyes widened in shock. To the user of a visual jutsu like the Sharingan, sight was prized above all else. To lose it would be unthinkable. How far has your vision degraded? I would have had to forego use of my eyes soon to prevent further decay. But that means nothing now, said Itachi as the corners of his mouth slowly curled upwards. Did you never wonder why Madara was feared as one of the most powerful ninja to ever live, while his brother Izuna, who achieved the same level of Sharingan, is never mentioned? Because Madara found a way to restore his sight. The only way to escape the darkness is to take the light of another. And if the donors are not closely related, the transplant will likely fail. Do you see now? You will be my new light, Sasuke. Sasuke spun around quickly as Itachi disappeared from the throne, barely blocking the kunai sweeping at his back. Itachi twisted his grip on the kunai, lunging forward with a stab at Sasuke. The younger brother reached down and pulled out his sword, blocking the tip of the kunai with the flat of his blade. Itachi dropped the knife to grab hold of Sasuke's arm, jumping up to deliver a strike with his feet. The kick was also blocked by Sasuke moving his sword slightly, but Itachi simply used it as a platform to kick Sasuke with his other leg. The young Uchiha's Sharingan spun wildly as time seemed to slow. Sasuke bent backwards, using Itachi's grip against him to throw him across the room. When Itachi skidded to a halt and looked at his younger brother, Mangekyo's Sharingan looked at each other for the first time in a century. Sasuke bit his thumb to use the sealing tags hidden in his wristbands, and Itachi's hand simply emerged from the Akatsuki cloak with a shuriken between each finger. They threw at the same time, each anticipating the other's throw perfectly. The shuriken collided in midair, knocking each other off course. Sasuke unsealed more shuriken directly into his hands, cutting out the precious seconds wasted when reaching for a kunai pouch. Somehow, though, Itachi was keeping pace with him, pulling a seemingly endless amount of shuriken out of the sleeves of his cloak. Neither brother could land a hit the other, and every shuriken was deflected by another. Eventually, Sasuke ran out of shuriken, and used his sword to deflect the last one that Itachi had thrown. It was as if Itachi was still one-upping him, carrying only one more shuriken on purpose, just to rub it in. The two brothers ran at each other, Sasuke aiming high with his sword and Itachi coming in low with just his bare hands. Itachi was a bit faster, and managed to get a firm grip on Sasuke's throat, causing Sasuke to gag as his airway was abruptly closed. Sasuke twisted his grip on his sword, hoping to hit Itachi through the pain, but Itachi's other hand delivered a powerful punch to the stomach, driving any air Sasuke still had from his lungs and driving him into the wall so hard he left a small crater. Before he could blink, Itachi was in front of him. Sasuke tried to hit Itachi away and get some breathing space, but the older brother grabbed Sasuke's wrist and held it above Sasuke's head. Soon, I will be able to see the world clearly once more. You shall be the one cast into unending darkness. As he talked, Itachi's other hand slowly came up as if he were pointing at Sasuke's right eye with 2 fingers. His intentions were far more sinister than the harmless pokes on the forehead he had always given Sasuke as a child, though. The pain was probably the worst part. Right behind it was seeing Itachi's bloody hand pull back, clutching the Mangekyo Sharingan before placing it in a small glass canister filled with some kind of liquid. Sasuke wasn't one to just roll over and die though, and he struck out again with his other hand. Itachi moved to deflect that attack as well, but pulled back when it lit up with lightning. He landed on the other side of the room, using the time to place the stolen eye inside his Akatsuki cloak. Sasuke's hand was held up against his empty eye socket as he gasped in pain. Ignoring the blood dripping down his face, Sasuke gathered a large amount of his chakra in his remaining eye in a desperate ploy. Hoping he was right, Sasuke looked Itachi dead in the eye and released the chakra in one burst. Color bled out of reality, making the whole world white and black before it shattered into a million pieces. Sasuke stood in the middle of the chamber again, and Itachi still sat in the throne, looking mildly surprised. The only blood on Sasuke's face was a small dribble from his left eye, as if it had been crying the red liquid instead of tears. I didn't think you would be able to see through my genjutsu, let alone break out of it. And to copy the Tsukuyomi after seeing it only once would require a very powerful Sharingan. I must say though, yours is far less subtle, said Itachi as he looked down at the shackles binding his wrists to the chair. His Mangekyo Sharingan spun wildly and they shattered, revealing unfettered reality. Would you like some pointers from your big brother about how to use genjutsu properly? Itachi looked up at Sasuke as he mocked the younger brother, only to find that he wasn't there. A blue light came from the behind Itachi, accompanied by a loud crackling similar to 1,000 birds. No thanks, I think I've got a handle on it. Itachi leapt from his throne in time to avoid having his head cut off by the Chidori enhanced sword that sliced through the stone chair. Itachi flipped over in midair, running through some seals as he turned to face Sasuke. Fire style, grand fireball. A burst of flame shot out of Itachi's mouth and hurtled down towards Sasuke. The younger Uchiha returned to favor in kind, launching his own flames. The two fireballs were of equal strength, and neither Uchiha had yet to land a hit in reality. Itachi landed upside down on the ceiling so that even though Sasuke stood on the raised dais, Itachi was still higher. You have grown stronger, little brother. You might have been able to stop the massacre if you were this strong then. But now is a different story. Even if you match my strength, I will climb to even higher heights. This is the fate of a genius. Spare me your speeches, Itachi. I will avenge the clan, and then stop Akatsuki's goals," said Sasuke as he fearlessly looked Itachi dead in the eye. Sasuke jumped up to land on the ceiling across from Itachi, and his hands ran through a series of seals before becoming engulfed in lighting. "No matter what heights you climb to, I'll keep surpassing them until I defeat you." Sasuke ran forward, Mangekyo Sharingan ready to detect any counters Itachi attempted against the Chidori as it dug a trench into the ceiling. "Foolish little brother. Akatsuki's goal is peace, and I will live to see that peace with these eyes." Sasuke's Sharingan noticed the massive buildup of chakra in Itachi's closed right eye. Copying the technique for later, Sasuke immediately cut off to the right, running around Itachi to try and evade the coming attack. Amaterasu! Black flames shot out at Sasuke and a bit of blood leaked out of Itachi's right eye. Fighting through the pain, Itachi kept his eye open to chase down Sasuke with the fire, which had already latched onto the ceiling around Itachi in a semicircle as it followed Sasuke's path. 3/4 of the way, the flames caught up to Sasuke, hitting him square in the back. Thinking he had hit Sasuke, Itachi's eye closed to end both the technique and the pain. With no time to hesitate, Sasuke ripped off his shirt and discarded it, careful not to touch any of the black flames. A shirt was easy to replace. A limb was not. Sasuke grinned all the same, and rammed a lightning-coated fist into the ceiling below him one more time. That was all it took, and Itachi looked around frantically as the section of ceiling Sasuke had cut out with his Chidori broke the rest of the way and began to fall. Sasuke flipped over to land on the roof of the building, and Itachi sprinted in one of the directions that wasn't engulfed in black fire to make his own escape. Looking up at Itachi, Sasuke wiped some blood from below his eye and used it to unseal something from his wristband. In a cloud of smoke, a windmill shuriken appeared in Sasuke's hand. Itachi contorted his body to avoid the massive shuriken, and his Sharingan was able to notice the other one hiding in the shadow of the first. What he didn't see, however, was the ninja wire that Sasuke pulled on with a smirk. The rigged shuriken exploded, launching the blades outwards. 6 went in the entirely wrong direction, and 1 missed, but 1 bit deep into Itachi's thigh. The wound was painful, and Itachi winced as he landed heavily on the roof. "Foolish older brother," said Sasuke mockingly. "I don't think I've ever even seen you get as much as a scratch, and yet I've managed to wound you so deeply. I don't think I want to have my vision decay as much as yours must have. Don't worry though, I'll make sure you see the world of peace that will be created when I destroy Akatsuki with my own eyes." "You're Minato's son, aren't you?" asked Jiraiya, this time addressing Naruto directly. "I can't believe I didn't make that connection before. Minato, as in the 4th Hokage and most recently deceased Toad Summoner? I've known about that since I could walk," said Naruto. Jiraiya was stunned. "Then why have you joined Akatsuki? They've done nothing but fight against the very thing your father died for." "I honestly had no idea about how Akatsuki went about their goals when I first joined. Once I learned about what exactly they had planned, well, Akatsuki isn't the kind of group you can just leave. There's no difference between us. You fight for your cause, and I fight for mine." "And isn't world peace something worth fighting for?" asked Naruto, raising a finger to his temple. He didn't mind taking a trip down memory lane, knowing that every second he spent arguing ideals with Jiraiya was another second of sage mode the old Sannin wasted. "World peace? Are you stupid? Akatsuki is gathering weapons of mass destruction," shouted Jiraiya. "There's no way anything good can come from giving criminals such power, because the hidden village system has done such a good job of making a peaceful world," replied Naruto sarcastically. "Don't pretend your hands are any cleaner than mine. You've killed just as many, if not more people than I have. The only difference is who we killed for. I don't belittle the 4th Hokage's sacrifice, but the system he fought for leads only to wars and hate. Sometimes, in order to create something better, The previous failure must be wiped clean. And what makes you think Akatsuki, a group of violent sociopaths and serial killers, will create a more peaceful system? Asked Jiraiya. At least the hidden villages make attempts at peace. The group of Akatsuki could care less about world peace, you're right. But the leader of Akatsuki is more powerful than all of us, more powerful than you could believe, and he plans to personally lead the world out of war," said Naruto. "He's a god. Forgive me if I don't believe in divine intervention on your behalf," retorted Jiraiya. "He won't succeed, no matter how strong of a man he is. He's still just a man. That's where you're right, actually. He calls himself a god, but he really isn't. He is, however, completely justified in his delusions of grandeur. I did some research, and found out what he has that sets him apart from the rest of us. From one toad summoner to another, I'll tell you, since I won't be in any condition to tell you if I lose, and you won't be telling anyone if I win. The bloodline he hasn't been seen in over a millennium, and I was only able to uncover its name. It's the same power used by the legendary Sage of Six Paths." Naruto watched as Jiraiya gasped in shock and his eyes widened in surprise. "The Rinnegan, Nagato?" Jiraiya was in a state of disbelief. "I don't know who Nagato is, but our leader calls himself Pain," said Naruto, tilting his head a bit in confusion. "Who is Nagato? He was my student years ago, one I thought was the child of prophecy. He too had the Rinnegan. I thought he was dead, along with Yahiko and Konan," said Jiraiya, horrified at the implications of Nagato being alive. Naruto wasn't blind to the implications either. "The prophecy is already coming true. Whether or not he dooms the world or saves it, it looks like I was right. Akatsuki will be the winning side here. I've never heard the names Yahiko or Nagato, but Konan at least lives. She's a member of Akatsuki as well, actually. Akatsuki might be the winning side, but that doesn't mean you'll be there when the prophecy comes true." Jiraiya leapt forward, rearing back his fist to strike at Naruto as he did. "Do you never learn?" asked Naruto as he dodged the straightforward jab and the aura of sage chakra surrounding it. He swung up with the sword, slicing Jiraiya cleanly in half. His smirk stayed for only a second before the Sannin disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as Jiraiya's chakra simply disappeared. "Actually, I do." Naruto wheeled around at the sound of Jiraiya's voice, which, according to his chakra sensing skill, came from absolute nothingness. Without the knowledge of Jiraiya's actual location, Naruto was unable to dodge the punch that knocked the stone sword from his grasp and deadened his arm. Jiraiya's left hand shot out to hold Naruto's other hand to prevent any other counterattacks. "You hid from my sage mode?" Naruto looked at the Sannin, who was very much right in front of him, despite still not having any chakra. "How? I'm full of tricks and natural chakra. By venting it out at the right frequency, I just fade into the background." Jiraiya raised his hand up in front of Naruto's face, holding a regularly sized Rasengan. The red marks beneath his eyes faded to their normal straight lines down his face, signifying the end of his sage mode. "You're not in sage mode any longer, but I can go for days, months, years. That attack will barely sting," said Naruto, slightly worried about how thoroughly outmaneuvered he had been, but confident in the defensive prowess of sage mode against an attack that didn't have any natural chakra in it at all. "This isn't what I'm going to hit you with. The Rasengan actually isn't complete. I had given up on it, but I decided to try and finish it once I heard about you always being in sage mode. I've tested it on myself, and even in sage mode, I barely survived this." Jiraiya's hand snapped down to his side, and the blue Rasengan became pitch black with a fiery aura around it. Jiraiya's hand was clearly burning up just from being near such powerful chakra. "Take this. Hellfire Rasengan." The attack slammed into Naruto's gut, and the impact actually tore him out of Jiraiya's grip. Not that he could do much with his free arm, as he was sent flying, leaving a flaming trench in his wake. Jiraiya had just started to apply some ointment that he had Tsunade prepare beforehand to his horribly burned arm when the Hellfire Rasengan destabilized. The result was a pillar of fire that stretched into the sky, incinerating everything in a half-mile radius. Despite his self-inflicted injuries, Jiraiya grinned at his success. Even for someone in sage mode, the attack was painful and debilitating. The Sannin sat down and meditated for a short time, entering a sort of sage mode that would expire quickly. Its imperfection shone through in the large number of toad-like qualities, from the wart-covered nose to the slightly webbed feet. The pathetic excuse for sage mode would do just fine to let Jiraiya ignore his injuries temporarily and finish of the younger sage if he was still alive. Deidara looked up at the massive column of fire that darkened the sky as the light it emitted shone brighter than the sun for a brief moment. She raised an arm and squinted to try and get a better look, but it didn't help much. Not that there would have been anything to see, just a large cylinder of fire that's heat could be felt from over where she was. "Oh no you don't," mumbled Deidara under her breath as her bird flew to the violently cleared section of forest. "I just finished saving you, ass, and I am not going to do it again, yeah?" Honestly, if he was still alive, Deidara was going to beat some survival instincts into Naruto's thick skull. Honestly, she could have sworn he had nearly died more times than Haiden. She landed in the center of the fiery destruction's aftermath, looking around for her partner. She found him, badly burned, hacking up equal parts smoke and blood, in the center of the crater. "Goddamn. What happened here, yeah?" She jumped off her clay mount to head down to Naruto's side. "You gave as good as you got, right, Deidara?" Naruto stopped to cough up more blood onto his tattered and burned Akatsuki cloak. "Get away." His short message delivered, Naruto faded into unconsciousness. Deidara grunted with the effort of carefully lifting Naruto into her bird's beak gently so as to not worsen his injuries. Just as her bird began to take off a bit, Naruto's opponent appeared. Deidara was by no stretch of the imagination a censor, but she had been alongside this chakra signature for years, and the idea that it had managed to hurt Naruto this badly suddenly made sense. "I'll have to ask you to stop right there. I'd hate to have to kill such a pretty lady." Deidara flinched at that last line and slowly turned to see a white-haired old geezer who looked like he was part frog. He stood tall and proud, though the right sleeve of his red outfit looked like it had been burned off, and he had a large cut across his chest. All in all, he was acting far more confident than anyone as ugly and beat up as he was had any right to. "Back off, you old geezer. I'm getting my partner out of here, and I won't lose any sleep over killing you to do it if I have to, yeah?" said Deidara, subtly moving her right hand into the clay pouch on her waist. "So you are Akatsuki? Shame too, you would have been quite the looker in a couple of years," said Jiraiya, sinking down to all fours and preparing to hop at her. "In a couple years?" yelled Deidara indignantly. "The hell is that supposed to mean, yeah?" Deidara almost flinched as the old toad man jumped at her like, well, a toad. She wasn't an S-rank ninja for nothing though, and waited until the last second to throw a large clay snake at him. It bent and writhed in midair to ensnare Jiraiya before exploding violently. When the smoke cleared, Jiraiya stood mostly unharmed, though the same couldn't be said for his clothing. Jiraiya looked up to see the bird carrying Naruto flying away. Deidara hurried to infuse her chakra into some more clay, a task that had become easier with only 2 parasites to deal with. But Jiraiya's hands were faster still. Sage Art, Flame Bullet. The fireball was extremely small and streamlined, but it was incredibly fast and very accurate. Deidara feared that the Sannin was aiming at her, but the attack missed by a mile. A second later, the truth behind the S-rank ninja's terrible aim became apparent when Deidara saw the flaming projectile hit her bird's wing, triggering a premature detonation. With Naruto in its beak. Several hundred feet in the air. "Naruto!" shouted Deidara before turning to face the old man who had turned his attention back to her. She hurriedly threw a swarm of white locusts at her attacker, which exploded at different intervals, creating a wall of detonations that enveloped the Sannin. When Jiraiya could see something other than red flames and hear something other than a cacophony of booms, the blonde Akatsuki member had disappeared. It would have been a simple matter to track her with Sage Mode, but the current imperfect Sage Mode he was in was never intended to be anything more than a quick patch job for short bursts of exertion. He finally ran out of Sage Chakra, and his own reserves were running to low to safely gather more. The exhaustion of the tasks he had accomplished in Sage Mode caught up with him all at once, and he almost succumbed to unconsciousness. He had inflicted enough pain to Akatsuki, and he had rightfully beaten Naruto in single combat before his partner had interfered. That would have to do for today, he thought as he limped off to recover from his wounds. Deidara emerged from underground in the general vicinity of where Naruto would have crashed. If the old man from before was chasing her, she didn't have long to search, and if his technique was the same as Naruto's, he would find them both immediately. She looked frantically, ignoring most conventional tactics in favor of faster methods. Minutes of searching later, and she had turned up nothing, not even a scrap of the infamously sturdy Akatsuki cloak. A thought occurred to her in horror as she heard the burbling sound of water in the background in a moment of quiet after a loud noise and a bright flash. She rushed to the stream, and sure enough, Naruto's tattered Akatsuki cloak had snagged on a branch near the bank. Searching the vicinity for the body was fruitless, and she could only conclude that the stream had carried of her partner's body. Hopefully his still-alive body. She flew up, and ignored the completely wrecked Uchiha hideout, looking instead at the waterfall that went almost immediately into a cavern not far from where Naruto had presumably fallen into the water. A tear most certainly did not fall down her cheek and into the water below because S-rank ninja did not cry. It was just undignified, no matter how close you were to the partner that had just died. I see you've let such an inconsequential victory go to your head, foolish little brother. You're welcome to my eyes, but only if you are strong enough to take them. Itachi's face was broken by an insane smile as his Mangekyo Sharingan began to bleed once more. Realizing what Itachi was planning, Sasuke channeled chakra to his own right eye and released it in the exact moment Itachi did, getting the timing perfect with his own Sharingan. The brothers' black flames collided in between them, burning everything they touched, including each other. Bits of fire overshot the other wall of black flames, igniting the forests on the terraced mountain. The size discrepancy was due to the smaller amount of chakra that Sasuke had put into his Amaterasu, and the movement of the brothers to try and get out of the way in case their fire lost. In the end, the black fires burned each other into nothingness, except where they had caught onto the trees that had grown on the previously well-kept terraces of the Uchiha hideout. It appears we are more even than I thought, said Itachi appreciatively. You have taken to those eyes faster than I anticipated. I'm just copying Big Brother, said Sasuke, smirking a bit despite his chakra exhaustion. Both brothers looked to the left as a massive pillar of flames erupted into the sky. While it was good for Sasuke personally, he didn't know anyone formed the hidden leaf that could cause such destruction, which left the horrible option that one of his allies had been on the receiving end of that attack courtesy of Akatsuki. I thought I warned you to come alone, said Itachi, capitalizing on Sasuke's fears to draw out more anger. In truth though, Itachi wasn't aware of anyone other than himself and perhaps Kakuzu who could perform such high-leveled fire-style techniques. Not that the fact that it was likely a technique used by a hidden leaf ninja would stop Itachi from twisting it to serve his own ends. It looks like someone is paying the price for your inability to listen. Sasuke glared at Itachi as if looks could kill, which they could in a fight like this. I might have been learning how to use my new eyes from you before, but now I'm going to show you something I came up with on my own. Not even your Sharingan will be able to keep up with this attack. It will over in a flash, which is more than you deserve. Now die in a clap of thunder. Sasuke summoned a hawk during his boast, and his hand began to crackle with lightning. The lightning shot up into the clouds created by the Amaterasu and the mysterious pillar of flames from before, and they began to spark with barely contained potential. Kirin! Sasuke brought his hand down, and Itachi's eyes widened in horror. Despite the speed of the technique and the decay of his vision, Itachi was perfectly capable of seeing the mythical creature made of lightning descend upon him. And in that millisecond, he reacted. Sasuke panted in exhaustion as he looked at the ruin of his Kirin. It had unleashed even more destruction than last time, and the mountain had mostly been leveled into a field of rubble. The only notable exception was the wall he was currently flying above that was proudly emblazoned with the Uchiha crest. He descended to ground level, and then his eyes widened in shock when he saw it. Itachi was struggling to his feet, obviously wounded, but very much alive. Foolish, little brother. Itachi paused to cough up a massive amount of blood into his hands before continuing. I have yet to show you the ultimate technique of our eyes. Sasuke reactivated his Sharingan, copying Itachi as he channeled a massive amount of chakra to both of his eyes. The older Uchiha was cloaked in a fiery red aura, which took on the form of a skeleton's upper torso. The skeleton form lasted only a moment as muscle and skin made of chakra quickly covered the warrior that surrounded Itachi. That stage was quickly covered by armor and clothing, leaving only the glowing yellow eyes of the red warrior visible. Sasuke tried to copy the technique, but his purple spectral warrior failed to get more than one arm covered by muscle and skin, leaving him with a mostly skeletal horned protector with glowing yellow eyes. Foolish little brother, you don't have nearly enough hate to use this technique as well as I can. This Susanoo is fueled by my rage at our clan, my hatred of the village, and most of all, my loathing of you. Thinking you were allowed to live because you were special, robbing me of my time so we could play. I abhorred you above all in this world. It pained me to let you live all those years ago, but it is a mistake I will now rectify. Tears streamed down Sasuke's face at Itachi's words. He had always held out some belief that Itachi had once been the kind brother he remembered, and that some part of him still had the brotherly love. A scream of rage and betrayal that had been stored up for years tore itself out of Sasuke's throat, and his Susanoo became covered entirely in skin and muscle, even gaining a bow in its right hand. Vision blurred by his use of the Mangekyo Sharingan and his tears, Sasuke's Susanoo loosed an arrow at Itachi, whose Susanoo simply raised a shield to block it. The arrow simply dispersed into energy as it impacted the red shield. Sasuke cried blood alongside his tears as black flames shot out of his Susanoo to impact Itachi's, though they had little more effect than his arrow. Itachi limped towards Sasuke, and his Susanoo raised its two right hands. The lower one held a jug, out of which a fiery liquid burst forth. The second hand grabbed onto the aura, grasping it like a sword, which it used to deflect another one of Sasuke's arrows. The sword descended, and though Sasuke tried to block it with his Susanoo, the blade cut off the arm he raised to block it with. The arm fell to the ground with a thud, before fading into nothingness. Itachi raised the sword again, and Sasuke tried to take advantage of the opening by launching a punch at red opposing Susanoo. It impacted harmlessly against the shield that Itachi's Susanoo carried though, and the sword fell unimpeded. This time, the horned head of Sasuke's Susanoo fell to the ground, and as it faded, his Susanoo receded as well. The technique seemed to be taking its toll on Itachi as well, however, as he gripped his chest in pain and coughed up more blood. The Susanoo receded to its basic skeleton frame, and Itachi slowly limped towards his little brother, hand raised to rip out the younger Uchiha's eyes. Sasuke backed up in fear until his back hit the wall, though by the time Itachi reached him the red Susanoo had faded to a simple red aura around Itachi. Sasuke cowered as Itachi came within grabbing distance, and despite all his rage at Itachi and Akatsuki, all his plans, Sasuke despaired and resigned himself to his fate. Then something unexpected happened. Itachi keeled forward the remaining distance, hitting Sasuke in the forehead instead of the eyes. The older Uchiha's vision must have been truly terrible at this point to miss like that. As Itachi collapsed to the ground, hacking up clots of blood, Sasuke could have sworn he heard Itachi whisper something. "Sorry, Sasuke. It ends like this." Kisame reached the scene a minute later, a tad worried for his partner after seeing the massive bolt of lightning that had descended on the Uchiha hideout and blown it to smithereens. He had of course waited until the fighting had died down to prevent Itachi getting angry at him for disrupting the fight, but by the time he arrived, either Uchiha was present.